Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump says gas prices should come down much faster as oil prices plummet. What's behind his call to investigate oil companies and what Secretary of State Marco Rubio is telling Gulf allies about the current Iran agreement. Ship traffic surges in the Strait of Hormuz, the latest data from shipping tracking services, and an incident that still causes concern. A federal judge blocks President Trump's executive order tightening mail-in voting rules, dealing another setback to his election integrity agenda. The Supreme Court hands the Trump administration a major immigration win, allowing officials to revive a border policy that turns away some asylum seekers. Thousands of people are estimated dead after two major earthquakes hit Venezuela. How the U.S. is responding and what President Trump is saying. President Trump kicks off the Great American State Fair on the National Mall as the nation begins its America 250 celebration.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. President Trump says gas prices should come down much faster as he demands an investigation into oil companies. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Middle East to reassure allies about the current Iran agreement. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. So Iris, good afternoon. What is the latest today?
Good afternoon to you as well, Don. So as Secretary of State Marco Rubio is abroad, telling our Gulf allies about the latest memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran, President Trump is telling Americans at home about the immediate economic impact of that deal, including now oil prices coming down. Now, the president says that he expects gas prices at the pump to drop soon as well. Watch.
For the first time in 3,000 years, we are finally going to have peace in the Middle East. We're going to have peace in the Middle East. Since the agreement, the stock market and your 401ks are skyrocketing upward, and oil prices are plummeting downward. Today, it hit a new low, and the world is a much safer place. We had to make that little journey to Iran to do what we did. Very soon, you'll be at $2.50 a gallon for gasoline.
And just yesterday, President Trump announcing on Truth Social saying that, quote, Iran has informed us that there are no tolls, no insurance costs, or any other fees associated with any ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, adding that if that's false information, negotiations would end immediately. And now the intelligence company, Kepler, has told Fox this morning that 70 vessels have crossed the Strait of Hormuz on Wednesday and 8 have made it through as far as today. And that marks a high increase over pre-war levels. As, of course, we know that a memorandum of understanding means that Iran has agreed to now keep the Strait of Hormuz open with no tolls. And now oil prices, the index have dropped below $73 per gallon, still hopping around that level with some fluctuations. But U.S. gas prices at around $3.90, still higher than pre-war levels, though down from its peak. President Trump announcing that he's now demanding the Justice Department to look into oil companies over potential price gouging activities. Here's what he said yesterday. Watch.
19 million barrels came out yesterday. That is a flood. That's like a gusher. That's an oil gusher. And they should be much lower, the gasoline prices, which really is what people see more than anything else, but for their car. But the gasoline prices should be much lower at the pump.
The CFO of Chevron, meanwhile, responding this morning, saying that there is naturally a lag between the fall in oil prices and what shows up at the pump for everyday consumers. Now, of course, when it comes to the actual negotiations between U.S. and Iran, they're still hashing out a final deal. Now, there have been some discrepancy, though, over what the two sides are saying. For example, Iran has been saying that they have not agreed to let international inspectors in to check on their damaged nuclear sites, while the U.S. says they have, and that's a major breakthrough. The IAEA yesterday confirming the U.S.'s stance. And on another note, Iran's officials today again pushing back on what the Trump administration has been saying about potentially its unfrozen funds being used to buy American agricultural goods. Now, despite that pushback, Secretary of State Marco Rubio responding while talking to reporters in the Middle East region, saying that do not believe in Iranian propaganda, but rather the U.S. is looking closely at their actual actions. Watch.
They're now interested in being a nation state that focuses on the well-being of their own people. If this is what they want for their future, the United States is prepared, alongside with all of you, to work to make that possible, despite our differences from the past. If they choose a different route, then of course this will not lead to a positive outcome. But let's be hopeful that it does, but also realistic.
Secretary Rubio is visiting Gulf nations in the region to reassure them about American protection and the consideration of their interests as the U.S. and Iran now proceed to the next phase of negotiations. The Gulf Cooperation Council today voicing support for American objectives outlined in the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, President Trump this afternoon, meanwhile, will be meeting with House Speaker Mike Johnson. A high priority for the president would now be to push the Safe America Act in both, of course, the House and the Senate to make sure that it passes to boost election integrity. Now, another topic, of course, would be Iran, as a lot of issues are now coming up domestically related to that as well. So a lot to watch for this afternoon to see if the president will open up his meeting with the House Speaker. Back to you.
All right, Iris, always appreciate the update. A boost in confidence following the signing of the Iran memorandum. The number of ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz is surging. According to ship tracking service, marine traffic vessel activity through the Strait of Hormuz rose sharply on Wednesday. The site recorded 70 crossings, up 105% day on day. Commercial traffic accounted for most of the activity, with 53 transits. This comes as demining efforts continue and more ship operators stay close to the coast of Oman. But the surge has not been without incidents. Earlier today, a cargo ship was hit by an unknown projectile. UK Maritime Trade Operations says the ship was transiting the strait near the coast of Oman. No casualties were reported. The Maritime Agency advises ships in the region to exercise caution. And a legal setback for President Trump's election integrity efforts. A federal judge is blocking his executive order on mail-in ballots. The president signed the executive order in March tightening mail-in voting rules. It directs the DHS to compile and transmit to states a list of confirmed eligible voters. It also requires the USPS to only deliver ballots to voters on each state's approved mail-in ballot list. Several Democratic-led states sued, arguing that the president is trying to unlawfully interfere with the state's administration of federal elections. U.S. District Judge Indira Tawani in Boston today siding with the challengers. This marks the latest in a string or a series of defeats for President Trump's executive orders on election integrity. His orders will not take force ahead of the November midterms. A federal judge blocks Trump from implementing a proof of citizenship requirement to vote. Joining us now to discuss this is Republican strategist Marley Hornick, CEO of Real America Vote. Marley, good afternoon. So the judge ruled that the Constitution doesn't give the president specific powers over elections. But, federal law prohibits non-citizens from voting in elections. So the president wasn't creating a new citizenship requirement. He's directing federal agencies to better enforce existing law. Can you weigh in on this?
Well, Don, it's an interesting question. I would posit it a slightly bit differently. Okay, so yes, the federal law does prohibit non-citizen voting, but more importantly, the second sentence of the United States Constitution requires the states to qualify voters according to their own laws. Every state in the union currently requires U.S. citizenship in order to be able to vote. So the issue really is not whether the president has the authority to order a new process, which the states control according to that clause, the Composition Clause, Article 1, Section 2. It's whether the president has the authority to order the states to choose a process that works. because right now, RealAmerica.vote is deeply involved in research projects showing that New York State and California both have utterly failed to qualify voters according to law, and that massive percentages of the vote, sometimes over 6%, for example, of voters who voted do not exist. So this is parallel, I think, to a lot of what's going on with the other fraud studies inside of the task force the vice president is leading. And I just want to say I'm here in Grand Central because I wanted to demonstrate to everybody looking, I'm in Grand Central Station. Every single person walking by behind me is qualified to vote according to the New York City and New York State boards of elections. You can literally walk into a polling place, any of these people, get a ballot, submit it, and have your vote counted. That's the chaos of the process. They're choosing to enforce the United States Constitution.
So can you explain this to us then? Why does it seem like, simply showing proof of citizenship, why is it so controversial? I mean, you would think, right, everyone would be in support of this. I mean, Democrats, if you look on their side, they're not a stranger to requiring ID. I mean, I'm here in New York last winter. They were requiring 4 to 5 pieces of ID just to shovel snow. We're talking about shoveling snow here. And if you look at the opening of the Obama's presidential library, it requires photo ID to attend the event. So why? Talk to us.
Well, the only reason it's controversial is quite obvious, Don. I think it's because, parties want to be able to cheat, or candidates or election officials want to be able to cheat. There's no other logical explanation on an issue that has over 85% support across parties across the country. So it's really obvious to everyone who wants fair elections done. That's the only reasonable answer. And again, one of the things that we have to think about here is how have these arguments been lodged thus far in the courts and in the court of public opinion? These have all been speculative, okay? So far, there's been a lot of allegations about the possibility of non-citizen voting, and there's been a very small study conducted by the Brennan Center with just 2,600 individuals nationwide, where they were trying to ascertain whether or not those people had what the Brennan Center used as a standard for voter eligibility, which was readily accessible documentary proof of citizenship, meaning it's literally in your purse. So if you were to happen to walk by a voter registration site, you wouldn't have to do anything other than walk up, produce that passport out of your purse. And if there's any friction at all in the system, any challenge to the voter, they have to, for example, go to a safety deposit box to retrieve their document and bring it to register to vote. They consider that a form of disenfranchisement. So it's a speculative argument. Fundamentally, that's the most important part. It's a speculative argument. No one knows how many people are accessing our voting system improperly. No one knows whether or not the members of Congress are legitimate or imposters serving a private master. That is exactly why RealAmerica.vote has undertaken these voter identity verification studies, because no one has ever measured it until now. And again, our results, Don, are stunning.
Okay, one other thing, Marley. So in the executive order, President Trump also is putting limits to mail-in ballot voting. Are there any issues that you see with mail-in ballots?
Well, I think the biggest issue is that, again, once the states decide to abandon the practice of qualifying voters properly before registering them to vote, the list becomes littered with false registrations and fake information. In New York State alone, our lawsuit against Letitia James and the New York State Board of Elections reports over 6 million material errors and omissions in registration records that are currently considered qualified to vote, including over 1 million people registered to vote on January 1st, which is not a real registration date. Now, some people might say, well, hey, that's just, chaff, that's just clerical error. Well, actually, it is false information entered into a national security database. So no, it's not just clerical error. And, this is a real issue, because when you have a state like California or Colorado and now New York coming up, where they decide that they're going to mail a ballot to every single person on the registration list, Now you have a whole lot of ballots flying around the mail system, and they can potentially have no legitimate destination, which makes it really easy for someone who knows to grab them up and submit them. So that's a huge vulnerability of mail-in voting, among many.
Okay, Marley, it's been good to speak with you today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don.
President Trump scores a victory at the Supreme Court, reviving a border policy that lets officials turn away some asylum seekers before they enter the U.S. Stay with us for more news after this break.
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get two free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains.
The Supreme Court is siding with the Trump administration in an immigration case, allowing it to revive a policy that turns away asylum seekers before they enter the U.S. Under the policy called metering, officials can turn migrants away at the border. This prevents them from filing for asylum because they must be on U.S. soil to do so. The policy began during the Obama era due to overcrowding at the southern border. It ended some years ago. The Trump administration is now looking to revive the policy. The government argues that migrants who are turned back are not eligible to apply for asylum because they technically never entered the U.S. In a 6-3 decision today, the Supreme Court sided with the administration. In a separate ruling, the High Court is also siding with the administration over temporary protected status, or TPS. This allows the DHS to remove deportation protections for nationals of Haiti and Syria. The decision is expected to impact thousands of Haitians and Syrians. Under TPS, certain nationalities are protected from deportation if their home country is experiencing war or natural disasters. DHS ended TPS designations for Haiti earlier this year and for Syria late last year. The Justice Department argued that lower court judges had exceeded their authority in blocking the agency's decisions, the Supreme Court justices ruling 6-3 in the administration's favor. Florida is closing the Alligator Alcatraz detention center. Governor Ron DeSantis says DHS is capable of handling the illegal immigrants now, so the facility is no longer needed.
Alligator Alcatraz fulfilled the role that it was designed to serve. Today it now has 0 detainees. It has helped remove many, many dangerous people from the street and get them out of not only the state of Florida, but the United States of America. The detainees that were here are still in federal custody. The demobilization efforts here at this facility are underway.
The Florida governor opened the temporary detention center in the Everglades in July last year. Officials announced a temporary closure of the facility earlier in June and sent all of the detainees to other facilities. Authorities say hurricane season made it unsafe to keep them in the Everglades. DeSantis highlights that Alligator Alcatraz has made the state of Florida as well as the entire country safer. He says the facility has helped deport almost 21,000 people, including many violent criminals. The governor stresses that state and local law enforcement will continue to partner with DHS and ICE to enforce immigration law. The Supreme Court has struck down a Hawaii law requiring permission to carry guns in stores and hotels. The High Court is issuing its latest decision on gun rights. The court's 6-3 decision means people can carry guns onto private property like shopping malls and gas stations. Hawaii's law had required gun owners to get explicit permission from property owners to carry their firearms on the premises. Owners can still prohibit firearms at their establishments. Hawaii also restricts guns in places like parks, beaches, and restaurants that serve alcohol. Those laws are currently being challenged in lower courts. The U.S. economy grew faster in the first quarter than previous estimates, with consumer spending close to stalling. The Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis releasing the latest data. Here are the details.
Product increased at a revised 2.1% annual rate last quarter. Earlier reports show growth at 1.6%. GDP increased 0.5% in the fourth quarter of 2025. Consumer spending was up just 0.7%. Meanwhile, jobless claims are down last week as layoffs remain low despite economic uncertainty for employers. Labor Department data showed applications for unemployment benefits in the week ending June 20th falling by 12,000 to 215,000. Unemployment remained at 4.3%. The Commerce Department reported inflation at 4.1% in May. Core inflation, which excludes gas and food prices, was at 3.4%.
A report by the IRS internal watchdog sheds light on a new major problem taxpayers are facing this year. The National Taxpayer Advocate report pats the agency on the back for a largely successful filing season, noting, quote, performed better than expected in most respects. But the report notes one problem is unconscionable. That's how long it takes to sort out identity theft. It happens a lot when a thief uses a taxpayer's social security number to file a phony return and steal their refund. The victim is then left with an avalanche of financial issues to clean up. Among the biggest is getting things settled with the IRS itself. Right now, 500,000 people are dealing with just that. The average time it takes to resolve is 20 months. The watchdog report also said hold times for people seeking help nearly doubled from 8 minutes last year to 14 minutes. The FCC is ramping up oversight of undersea cables that handle 99% of international internet traffic. The FCC said it was planning to require licenses for line terminal operators for the first time. The operators connect undersea cables to U.S. ground facilities. The new rules are expected to benefit U.S. companies like Facebook parent Meta and Google. The tech giants would be able to get approval more quickly to operate additional undersea cable systems to handle increasing internet traffic. Meanwhile, the White House is asking Congress to approve year-round sales of E15 gasoline. The request would make the sale of gasoline blended with 15% ethanol permanent nationwide. At present, gasoline with 10% ethanol can be sold year-round, but E15 faces summer restrictions because it evaporates quickly in the heat and contributes to smog formation. The move represents a long-standing goal of the biofuels industry, which produces ethanol generally from corn. Supporters say expanded E15 access could increase fuel supply options and be a boon economically to agricultural regions. Many refiners oppose the move. They say that year-round E15 sales could increase costs, require infrastructure upgrades, and complicate fuel supply logistics in some regions. 17 states are suing California in federal court over an anti-pollution law. It gives companies until 2032 to cut back on plastics and ensure packaging is compostable or recyclable. The law applies to businesses that sell in California, even if they're not based there. The plaintiffs argue the law is unconstitutional and they're asking for an injunction to stop it. They claim California has no right to force manufacturers in other states to take action. In a press release about the law, CalRecycle says it seeks to reduce pollution and waste. It says the hope is to minimize costs for small businesses and consumers. The National Association of Wholesaler Distributors is also a plaintiff. Federal investigators are cracking down on millions of dollars in autism care fraud. How has the autism community reacted to the alleged fraud? We have more news after this break.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Over 180 people are reported dead after two major earthquakes hit Venezuela, and the death toll is expected to rise by the thousands. The United States is already sending support. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the story from South America, and just a warning, the story contains some content that might be disturbing for some viewers.
A 7.2 magnitude earthquake hit near Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, on Wednesday.
Just a minute later, a stronger 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit. Now, some people here in neighboring Brazil felt the earthquake as well, but the disaster is centered around Venezuela, where many people are now looking for missing relatives. A desperate mother is seen crying, calling for her son after the earthquake destroyed buildings and more. Over 160 people are reported dead. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates the death toll could reach as much as 10,000. Eyewitness footage shows the moment the earthquake rocked the main airport in Caracas. Another video shows people screaming and running for safety in a major shopping mall as the ground starts trembling. President Trump taking to social media, saying the USA stands ready, willing and able to help. I have instructed all agencies of our government to get ready to move quickly. We will be there for our new and great friends. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he already spoke with Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, coordinating U.S. support.
The most immediate need, the one they need right now is search and rescue. That's the one they need immediately, because you got to get people out of that rubble within 48 hours or they won't survive. The airport there is badly damaged, so we'll have to rely on the Department of War to deploy assets there. And then we're also helping them with some overhead imagery, especially in coastal areas where they don't have full visibility over what the damage has been and what the impact has been.
Rubio says that's phase one of dealing with the aftermath. After that, the US and Venezuela will move to phase two, although it's not exactly clear yet what that will look like.
It is my guess, based on, what I know about these sorts of things, that they're going to need a place. How do you house all of these people in the short term? So we'll have a better understanding of that. It's not even 12 hours yet. Right. So we don't have a number on it yet.
He added that the U.S. Embassy in Venezuela is also establishing support for Americans who live there or are currently traveling in Venezuela. Now, this marks Venezuela's strongest earthquake in more than a century. The last major disaster struck in 1967, and a witness who survived that earthquake says this week's disaster is unlike anything he has ever seen. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
On the other side of the world, a separate earthquake striking off Japan's northeastern coast this morning. Japan's meteorological agency upgrading the quake to a magnitude 7.2 after initially reporting a 6.9. The earthquake struck off the east coast at a depth about 30 miles, but was not followed by a tsunami threat. The tremor was felt across northeastern Japan and likely shook buildings in Tokyo during the morning rush hour. Officials say there were no immediate reports of injuries or damage. Some bullet train and local rail services were temporarily suspended while crews conducted safety inspections. Government officials say nuclear facilities reported no abnormalities following the quake, including the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Marco Mullen is testifying before the House Appropriations Committee. Mullen answered questions from lawmakers as Congress considers a reconciliation bill to fund the department. Here is the secretary speaking about child trafficking at the southern border.
This is probably one of the most disgusting and disturbing things that we've dealt with. I dealt with some trafficking, child trafficking when I first got into Congress in 2013. And I actually stepped away from it because at some point it just starts wearing on you, and it's time to just kind of pass the baton because you get really jaded over it. When we stepped in here, we had 450,000 kids missing. 450,000 kids that were given to sponsors that weren't vetted. No home checks. No one was going by to see if they're where they're supposed to be, not even knowing if they're in their same state, not even to see if the sponsor was who they were at all.
Mullen touched on a range of topics in addition to the Homeland Security Department's responsibilities at the southern border. During today's hearing, Mullen detailed the department's efforts to provide security in cities hosting World Cup matches.
DHS has done a phenomenal job, and keep in mind, we're shut down through the majority of this, trying to stand this up. We have 78 Super Bowls in 11 cities in 38 days. Plus, we're assisting 13 games in Monterrey, Mexico, and Mexico City. So we've been spread thin. We couldn't do it without our private partnership and public partnership in our state. This hopefully can show that DHS, with CBP, with ICE, with TSA, with the FBI, we can work together and have a good working relationship when we're looking all together for enforcing laws and making sure that we're safe.
Mullen added that DHS and law enforcement were addressing a number of issues as U.S. cities across the country host World Cup matches. The DHS secretary said the department had seen an uptick in counterfeiting as well as human trafficking. Federal investigators are cracking down on millions of dollars in autism care fraud. Joining us now to discuss is Kelsey Bennett, clinician and family advocate with the Autism Families Alliance. So Kelsey, so good to have you on today. I just want to get your thoughts here. What goes through your mind, when you hear about these fraud cases where providers are allegedly billing for services that were never delivered at the detriment of children who really need this money?
Yeah, thank you for having me on today. It's extremely disheartening to learn about, the fraud happening within this space, because ultimately the majority of us clinicians and providers are acting within good faith and providing, medically necessary, socially significant services to these families. And ultimately, when you hear about those few bad actors within the field, ultimately, it puts a bad name on therapy. And ultimately, we just want to make sure that access to these services remains untouched, and that we're still able to provide these services to the families and children who so desperately need them.
Would you say the Trump administration's efforts here to root out fraud and hold fraudsters accountable, not only ensures that taxpayer money is going where it's supposed to go, right, but it's also acting as a deterrent against future fraud occurring? Do you think that that's the case?
I do. I think it's super important to weed out this fraud, and, fraud has no place anywhere. However, I just want to make sure that, again, access is not restricted, because there's a long history of ABA, having long wait lists, and it continues to. And just recently, especially in North Carolina, which is where I practice, just recently, within the last few years, we've been able to get more access to those families. And so now with the news of fraud and budget cuts and things like that, we are seeing some of these blanket stipulations put in place that really do make families and their children nervous about losing access to these services that they just now started receiving and have been seeing, such great results from. So I definitely agree that there's no place for fraud here, but I just want to make sure that, they are making informed decisions, not acting irrationally, and making sure that they have a plan in place for all of these children when attempting to weed out the fraud as well.
Right. I mean, that's an important point. You want to weed out the fraud, but at the same time, you don't want to make it too restrictive for people who actually need it. So what is the balance there? How do you walk that line? How do you have safeguards to prevent fraud, but at the same time, not making things too restrictive?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the most important thing is just, having very strict safeguards in place, rigorous auditing from the provider credentialing standpoint, real-time claims oversight, targeted enforcement against bad actors, looking for, blanket hours across multiple clients. Every client should not be getting 40 hours a week. So, kind of finding those red flags within companies and then auditing them heavily. But, we see restrictions on telehealth being implemented, very short, small caps being put on hours. And I don't believe that is really taking into consideration the needs of all of these families. So I think it's important for them to include clinicians in those decisions, because I think we can provide valuable insight into how we can really weed out the fraud while still maintaining access to the clients and their families.
So you said earlier there are a few bad actors that's making a bad reputation. What has the autism community reacted to these alleged fraud? How are they feeling when they see these fraud cases, essentially, I mean, if you really think about it, it's just taking money away from those who need it. How are they reacting to this, the community?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, it's stealing, right? Their money is being stolen. So, they're angry. They're very angry, and they're also scared. I would say those are the two main reactions that I'm getting from the families that I directly work with. They're very angry that money that should be going towards this vulnerable population to get the therapy that they need and deserve. And they're also scared that those services are going to be taken away from them because of it.
Okay, just one more thing I want to get your comments on. I know you've worked with dozens of children with autism. I'm wondering if there's a story or a journey you would like to share that has stayed with you, that really underscores the importance of these instances where access is so important to autism services.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. That's ultimately the reason why I do this. So I definitely have a lot of those and could go on for days. But ultimately, one that is still pretty recent to me is I had a client who was significantly underweight, had, severe aggressive behaviors, couldn't attend school. Without somebody with him, he was at risk of a feeding tube, even though he was fully verbal. And, within probably 6 months or so, I can happily say that he is now eating multiple different foods. He was very restrictive in what he was eating, and it was purely behavioral. So he's now eating multiple foods. He's gained over 10 pounds, and he's thriving, able to participate in school independently. We were able to fade ABA services out of school and just be in home now. So, he's really gained a lot of independence, and we're happy that he's not at risk of a feeding tube anymore. So, that's just one of thousands of stories that I have where ABA is so impactful. And if he didn't have those services, he would probably, have a feeding tube at this point.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's so heartwarming, and it really puts a face onto these issues where it will further underscore, the importance of such services and the importance of getting rid of fraud. So, Kelsey, thank you so much for speaking with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
The United States is pushing back against China over visa restrictions on American diplomats in Macau. The U.S. is skipping a high-level Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation tourism meeting in Macau, accusing Beijing of imposing what it's called discriminatory visa rules on U.S. officials. The State Department says China rejected a proposal to remove restrictions that limit U.S. personnel from providing emergency consular services to Americans in Macau. The department says the U.S. will not send senior participants to a tourism meeting in a location where its diplomats cannot fully assist American citizens in need. China, in response, accusing Washington of political manipulation. The dispute comes as the world's largest economies attempt to stabilize relations despite ongoing tensions over issues including trade and Taiwan. President Trump opens the Great American State Fair on the National Mall, launching America 250 celebrations ahead of next year's 250th anniversary of independence. Stay with us.
This is an urgent appeal from Save the Children.
أنا أخواتي بيموتوا من الجوع ما صرت أغذية كمان بيغوا بالليل بيبكوا من الجوع يعني ما بنحسن يعني نعمل لهم أكل أنا بضل باخدها بسكتها وما بتسكت كمان مو بس أختي صايرة جوعانة وأخواتي كل سنة 11 ويحمسوني واقفين
For Tariq, Asha, and Kaltun, watching their siblings experience the pain of malnutrition is heartbreaking. They are among the millions of children at greatest risk in the global hunger emergency. We need your support right now to help save children's lives. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. You can help us provide food, essentials, life-saving medical care, and help children who need it most. We need 1,000 new monthly donors this month to reach children around the world and right here at home. Please help children like Khaltoon so they don't have to watch their siblings suffer. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10, only 33 cents a day. You can help provide food, medicine, care, and protection by calling or going online right now and giving just $10 a month. Your donation today can help secure additional grants, which can multiply the impact of your support up to 10 times. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support. Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a hungry child survives. Show them they're not alone. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
The 8th NTD International Piano Competition welcomes distinguished pianists from around the world, celebrating the depth, discipline, and expressive power of the Baroque, classical, and romantic repertoire. September 1st through the 5th, 2026, New York City. Apply at piano.ntdtv.com, honoring the timeless tradition of the piano.
This summer, your living room gets an upgrade. Come check out the summer edit at Mathis Home, where we're showing the hottest styles and the best deals. Our selection of sectionals has never been better, and we've got something designed to fit your lifestyle and your space. You'll have room for everyone. You can even customize with modular designs to get the perfect layout just for you. They're all in stock with fast, free delivery. We can't wait to show you what's in store. Give your living room a refresh and shop the summer edit at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. So Dave, we have a lot of stuff today. We have NBA news, some college football news, but I want to start, of course, in the World Cup. Team USA is one of 12 teams in action today as they face Turkey tonight. Will Christian Pulisic play?
Yeah, it sounds like he will. Now, he's been training with the team this week. Team USA head coach Mauricio Pochettino indicated Pulisic would probably play for at least part of the game. Now, whether he'll start or come in, at halftime, not for sure. So we're still gonna have to see about that later in the game or later in the day. Now, there's also, though, of the matter of the 4 players who've gotten yellow cards thus far. Because U.S., they've already won their group, it sounds like Pochettino won't play them just to make sure they don't get a second yellow card. Now, yellow cards, it's similar to like a flagrant foul in basketball. You can stay in the game if you get one, but they add up. If you get 2 in the group stage, you get an automatic suspension. But if you can get to the next round with just that one, it'll be erased and you'll start the knockout stage with a clean slate again. So the U.S. will appear to just not play those 4 players with yellow cards today so they don't risk that suspension that would come in the knockout stage. So U.S. versus Turkey tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Kind of a late game, I would think, for the U.S. I was thinking since it'd be in our country, they would get a prime time slot, maybe 7 or 8 p.m., but 10 p.m. here tonight, Don. You gonna stay up for that one?
I don't think I am, because it's soccer. It's not football, after all, right? We were just talking about this before.
It's not football. It's not baseball. It's not basketball. It's not hockey either, right?
Exactly. Am I correct in assuming Team USA is the only team you're rooting for in the FIFA World Cup?
You are correct in saying that. I do like also to root for like the major stars in this tournament. I like to watch Lionel Messi play now. Did I say that right? Lionel? Yeah.
I think it's Lionel. I have no idea.
All right. Well, I like watching that guy play. I like watching Cristiano Ronaldo play, Kylian Mbappe, Erling Haaland. The stars, I do like watching them play. But as far as for teams, if they do well against the USA, I probably won't be happy that, I won't be rooting for them there. But I'm definitely pretty much only rooting for the USA, so I will be up to watch it tonight.
Well, tell us what happens afterwards.
I will definitely report to you.
But in English, it's called Lionel. I've been told it's called Lionel in other places. I don't know. But anyway, moving on to college football news. NFL has elected not to hold a supplemental draft this summer, which ends Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby's attempt to play there this season. Were you surprised at all by this decision?
You know, I am. I mean, just to be clear, the NFL, they do not have a supplemental draft every year. They haven't actually since 2023. In fact, it only happens when actually someone qualifies, which usually means they're unable to play college football for some kind of off-the-field reason that have come up since the amateur draft, which was just 2 months ago, but are still a highly regarded prospect. Sorsby certainly fits that criteria. Now, the NFL's decision was sent in a letter to Sorsby and obtained by ESPN. In it, there's a lot made of Sorsby's sports gambling past, not surprisingly. It seems very clear that the NFL would like to see the NCAA's full report into Sorsby's sports betting, among other things. So at this point, Sorsby, to apply, he had to drop his suit against the NCAA. And if he's going to play in the NFL, he's going to have to wait almost a year for the 2027 NFL draft. So it seems like he's got very few options to play football at all this season. I mean, maybe as far as pro leagues go, he could play in the Canadian Football League, which actually just started earlier this month and goes into November. So the options right now for Sorsby are pretty limited, I would say.
Is it the case for most college football players that after their career in college football, they don't really go on to NFL?
Yeah, there's only 7 rounds. There's like 30 players per round. So there's like 200 something players can go into the league maybe. You've also got free agents. But yeah, it's only going to be like the top couple % of college football players are going to make it into the NFL. Sorsby, I mean, had he been eligible for had he gone into this draft in April, the regular draft, I'm sure he would have been picked. I don't know if he would have been a first-round pick, but he certainly seems he was a very talented quarterback that would have been taken at some point there. So we'll have to see with another year under his belt. Maybe the NFL just kind of wants to see him not do any kind of gambling for the next year, since he was caught betting on his own team a couple years ago. So we'll have to see. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, to be honest with you, because he's a very talented player. Any college team would want him. He would be ineligible by the NCAA.
I see. Okay, let's talk about the NBA now. We've already had one reported blockbuster trade this offseason, but now it appears there's a second one. What is going on?
Yeah, ESPN is reporting that the Charlotte Hornets will trade all-star guard LaMelo Ball as well as reserve guard Josh Green to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Naz Reid, former Sixth Man of the Year, Naz Reid, plus a number of future draft picks. Now, yesterday, ESPN had been reporting the Hornets were in negotiations with multiple teams regarding a trade for Ball. It would appear that Minnesota won that. Now, in addition to Reid, the Timberwolves offer reportedly included a 2033 first-round pick, 3 future second-round picks, plus first-round pick swaps in 2028, 2029, and 2030. Now, the trade has not been confirmed by either team yet, but it would seem to give Minnesota an all-star to go along with Anthony Edwards, who is already a very good player for them. Now, earlier this week, ESPN also reported another blockbuster trade that would send Giannis Antetokounmpo from Milwaukee to Miami. That trade has not been confirmed yet, but is expected to be soon. You're just going to have to trust us. Eventually,
I trust you, Dave. I trust you.
You know, I'm trusting ESPN because they're usually right on these too.
Okay, whoever you trust, I think it's a safe bet for me to trust as well. So I'm very much an outsider to sports, so this probably will be an obvious question for you. But in terms of trading players, do the players actually have any say? Can they refuse?
Well, they can make it known that they don't want to go somewhere and that they might not report. I've seen that very rarely happen, that they just say, you know what, I'm not going to report to this team. And they can get into a little bit of trouble, but you can essentially force someone's hand by not reporting to that team. So technically, you don't have that. As long as you are under contract, you don't really have that option. Now, if he's got that, like Ball, for instance, he's under contract for 2 more years. At the end of those 2 years, he would become an unrestricted free agent and he can sign wherever he wants at that point. But if you want to but as far as for like deciding for a trade that you don't want to go somewhere, it's pretty difficult to do, but it has been done. It kind of ruins the fan base. The fan base you go to then is not very happy, feels kind of offended about that. I've seen that happen in a few cases, but you usually can force your way to it, I will say that.
All right, okay, thank you for keeping us updated on everything related to sports, Dave.
Thank you, Don.
All right, moving on. America's 250th anniversary is almost here, a historic marker in the nation's remarkable history. NTD will bring you special coverage of the Freedom 250 Salute to America celebration taking place in the nation's capital this 4th of July. It's going to be packed with tributes to the country, the people, and the trailblazers who helped define national identity, bringing America's legacy to life on stage, plus a fireworks show that Freedom 250 says will be the biggest in history. Our coverage starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. See you then. NTD's Sam Wong was out on the fairgrounds to hear from the people about how far we've come as a nation. We'll bring it to you after the break.
For the first time ever, we're bringing you MyPillow mattresses and mattress toppers for as low as $99.98. Remember, sleep's all about temperature and pressure points. Whatever sleep needs you have, we have the right technology for you. Like our MyPillow mattress topper, our queen size has over 10,000 individual comfort supports to help relieve your pressure points. And how about our 3-inch Hybrid Plus mattress topper? It's infused with copper and silver to help your body get the restorative sleep it needs. And our MyPillow and Case Coil mattresses, I personally helped develop these mattresses to make sure they have everything needed to give us great sleep. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they ship right to your front door, absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get MyPillow mattresses and toppers for as low as $99.98 and free shipping.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
Introducing the Quest-Wise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens your tired eyes. Placing the eye patches around your eyes helps to reduce dryness and massages acupuncture points. They can be worn while reading, studying, using electronics, and provide hours of long-lasting relief.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjion Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Be your own hero.
There are real consequences to controlled media.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump says gas prices should come down much faster as oil prices plummet. What's behind his call to investigate oil companies, and what Secretary of State Marco Rubio is telling Gulf allies about the current Iran agreement. Ship traffic surges in the Strait of Hormuz, the latest data from shipping tracking services, and an incident that still causes concern. A federal judge blocks President Trump's executive order tightening mail-in voting rules, dealing another setback to his election integrity agenda. The Trump administration winning today in Supreme Court rulings involving immigration and the Second Amendment. Arlene Richards breaks down the court's reasonings. The state of Florida closing Alligator Alcatraz. The governor says the detention center for illegal immigrants has fulfilled its role. Thousands of people are estimated dead after two major earthquakes hit Venezuela. How the U.S. is responding and what President Trump is saying.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Over 180 people are reported dead after two major earthquakes hit Venezuela, and the death toll is expected to rise by the thousands. The United States is already sending support. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has the story from South America, and a warning: the story contains some content that may be disturbing for some viewers.
A 7.2 magnitude earthquake hit near Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, on Wednesday. Just a minute later, a stronger 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit. Now, some people here in neighboring Brazil felt the earthquake as well, but the disaster is centered around Venezuela, where many people are now looking for missing relatives. A desperate mother is seen crying, calling for her son after the earthquake destroyed buildings and more. Over 160 people are reported dead. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates the death toll could reach as much as 10,000. Eyewitness footage shows the moment the earthquake rocked the main airport in Caracas. Another video shows people screaming and running for safety in a major shopping mall as the ground starts trembling. President Trump taking to social media, saying the USA stands ready, willing and able to help. I have instructed all agencies of our government to get ready to move quickly. We will be there for our new and great friends. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he already spoke with Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, coordinating U.S. support.
The most immediate need, the one they need right now, is search and rescue. That's the one they need immediately, because you got to get people out of that rubble within 48 hours or they won't survive. The airport there is badly damaged, so we'll have to rely on the Department of War to deploy assets there. And then we're also helping them with some overhead imagery, especially in coastal areas where they don't have full visibility over what the damage has been and what the impact has been.
Rubio says that's phase one of dealing with the aftermath. After that, the US and Venezuela will move to phase two, although it's not exactly clear yet what that will look like.
It is my guess, based on, what I know about these sorts of things, that they're going to need a place. How do you house all of these people in the short term? So we'll have a better understanding of that. It's not even 12 hours yet. Right. So we don't have a number on it yet.
He added that the U.S. Embassy in Venezuela is also establishing support for Americans who live there or are currently traveling in Venezuela. Now, this marks Venezuela's strongest earthquake in more than a century. The last major disaster struck in 1967, and a witness who survived that earthquake says this week's disaster is unlike anything he has ever seen. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
President Trump says gas prices should come down much faster as he demands an investigation into oil companies. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Middle East to reassure allies about the current Iran agreement. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao with the latest.
As Secretary of State Marco Rubio is abroad telling our Gulf allies about the latest memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran, President Trump is telling Americans at home about the immediate economic impact of that deal, including now oil prices coming down. Now, the president says that he expects gas prices at the pump to drop soon as well. Watch.
For the first time in 3,000 years, we are finally going to have peace in the Middle East. We're going to have peace in the Middle East. Since the agreement, the stock market and your 401ks are skyrocketing upward, and oil prices are plummeting downward. Today, it hit a new low, and the world is a much safer place. We had to make that little journey to Iran to do what we did. Very soon, you'll be at $2.50 a gallon for gasoline.
And just yesterday, President Trump announcing on Truth Social saying that, quote, Iran has informed us that there are no tolls, no insurance costs, or any other fees associated with any ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, adding that if that's false information, negotiations would end immediately. And now the intelligence company, Kpler, has told Fox this morning that 70 vessels have crossed the Strait of Hormuz on Wednesday and 8 have made it through as far as today. And that marks a high increase over pre-war levels. As, of course, we know that a memorandum of understanding means that Iran has agreed to now keep the Strait of Hormuz open with no tolls. And now oil prices, the index have dropped below $73 per gallon, still hopping around that level with some fluctuations. But U.S. gas prices at around $3.90, still higher than pre-war levels, though down from its peak. President Trump announcing that he's now demanding the Justice Department to look into oil companies over potential price gouging activities. Here's what he said yesterday. Watch.
19 million barrels came out yesterday. That is a flood. That's like a gusher. That's an oil gusher. And they should be much lower, the gasoline prices, which really is what people see more than anything else, but for their car. But the gasoline prices should be much lower at the pump.
The CFO of Chevron, meanwhile, responding this morning, saying that there is naturally a lag between the fall in oil prices and what shows up at the pump for everyday consumers. Now, of course, when it comes to the actual negotiations between U.S. and Iran, they're still hashing out a final deal. Now, there have been some discrepancy, though, over what the two sides are saying. For example, Iran has been saying that they have not agreed to let international inspectors in to check on their damaged nuclear sites, while the U.S. says they have, and that's a major breakthrough. The IAEA yesterday confirming the U.S.'s stance. And on another note, Iran's officials today again pushing back on what the Trump administration has been saying about potentially its unfrozen funds being used to buy American agricultural goods. Now, despite that pushback, Secretary of State Marco Rubio responding while talking to reporters in the Middle East region, saying that do not believe in Iranian propaganda, but rather the U.S. is looking closely at their actual actions. Watch.
They're now interested in being a nation state that focuses on the well-being of their own people. If this is what they want for their future, the United States is prepared, alongside with all of you, to work to make that possible, despite our differences from the past. If they choose a different route, then of course this will not lead to a positive outcome. But let's be hopeful that it does, but also realistic.
Secretary Rubio is visiting Gulf nations in the region to reassure them about American protection and a consideration of their interests as the U.S. and Iran now proceed to the next phase of negotiations. The Gulf Cooperation Council today voicing support for American objectives outlined in the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, President Trump this afternoon, meanwhile, will be meeting with House Speaker Mike Johnson. A high priority for the president would now be to push the Safe America Act in both, of course, the House and the Senate to make sure that it passes to boost election integrity. Now, another topic, of course, would be Iran, as a lot of issues are now coming up domestically related to that as well. So a lot to watch for this afternoon to see if the president will open up his meeting with the House Speaker. Back to you.
All right, Iris, always appreciate the update. A boost in confidence following the signing of the Iran memorandum, the number of ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz is surging. According to ship tracking service Marine Traffic, vessel activity through the Strait of Hormuz rose sharply on Wednesday. The site recorded 70 crossings, up 105% day on day. Commercial traffic accounted for most of the activity with 53 transits. This comes as demining efforts continue and more ship operators stay close to the coast of Oman. But the surge has not been without incidents. Earlier today, a cargo ship was hit by an unknown projectile. UK Maritime Trade Operations says the ship was transiting the strait near the coast of Oman. No casualties were reported. The Maritime Agency advises ships in the region to exercise caution. The United Nations Shipping Agency now paused an evacuation effort which aimed to get hundreds of stranded ships and thousands of seafarers out through the Strait of Hormuz after a vessel was attacked in the Gulf of Oman. Oil prices are falling to their lowest level since before the war started. Joining us now to discuss this is Michael Busler, economist, public policy analyst, and professor of finance at Stockton University. So, Michael, always good to talk to you. Good afternoon. So, oil prices are coming down. Is it going to follow this trajectory, continue to come down?
Yes, I believe so. As you pointed out, there were, I think, 70 ships that passed through the strait yesterday, was it? I think the normal is close to 100, so they're not fully up to capacity. Plus, there was 15 or 1,800 ships that were kind of stranded there. So it's going to take some time to get everything through. But if the strait remains open, the supply of oil will meet or exceed the supply that we had before this conflict. And that, of course, means that the price of oil and then the resulting gasoline will drop significantly.
Are we talking about months? Are we talking about weeks here before we go back to pre-war levels in terms of oil prices?
So the oil prices are probably less than a month away from dropping down into the mid-60s range. It dropped down to almost $70 a barrel. I think it inched up a little bit today. But these lower oil prices will translate to lower gasoline prices. President Trump said he's looking at the gas companies for price gouging. Now, I've never been a fan of that term, price gouging. Price gouging occurs when the market price of a product is just higher than somebody thinks it should be. So Trump said he's going to look at the oil companies and see if they are price gouging. The head of Chevron responded, there is a lag between when oil prices drop and you see gas prices at the pump. What I've seen is the lag is approximately two weeks. So this memorandum of understanding was signed about a week ago. Oil prices started to come down. You're still probably a week or so away from seeing gasoline prices drop significantly, although they are already under $4 a gallon and heading down.
Do you think it's a higher chance that gasoline prices will be at pre-war levels before the midterms in November or after the midterms? Which one is a higher chance?
I think well before the midterms, you'll see oil back down under $70 a barrel, and you'll see gasoline down to $3.50 a gallon, maybe as low as $3.25 or a little less. As that happens, of course, it will have a very positive effect on the inflation rate. And the June number, they measure inflation two different ways. The consumer price index, which is what we usually look at. There's another one called the personal consumption expenditure, slightly different than the consumer price index. But both of those are now showing 4% or more for the rate of inflation. I think, and we just saw that, we got the May number just today or the other day. When the June number comes out, you'll see the inflation rate coming down. When the July number comes out, you'll see the inflation rate drop down significantly. I expect by election time to see the overall inflation rate getting down under 2.5%, maybe as low as 2%. As I said, gasoline may be as low as $3 a gallon.
Okay, in your mind right now, this recovery of oil prices, recovery of the Strait of Hormuz, in your mind, do you feel it's fragile or is it pretty on solid footing?
Fragile. I think it's
Fragile.
about as fragile as you can possibly get. The problem is the Iranians have a long history going back to what President Obama negotiated, and even before that, they have a long history of signing an agreement and then doing something else. So President Trump has structured this so that they're not going to release any money that we've held by freezing their assets. It's their money, not ours. They're not going to release any money until the Iranians have done certain things. So it's fragile. Never before has Iran lived up to what they said they were going to. President Trump thinks the way he's negotiated this, he'll be able to get Iran to live up to their agreements if they want to see any of the positive economic benefits.
Are you looking at any long-term or permanent impacts to oil and energy, or can this be recoverable over time?
I hope there's a long-term impact. The most optimistic outlook is that Iran finally changes its ways and realize when they keep saying death to America and death to Israel, and they're firing missiles at all their neighbors, it's not going to get them anywhere. If they really want to improve the economic conditions of the country and of the people, now the regime doesn't seem to be as concerned about the welfare of the people. Indeed, they're killing their people. I think I just read in the last month they've executed about 3,000 rather more people. But if they change their ways and start looking at what's best for the country rather than trying to destroy everything, it will be much better for them and much better for the Middle East. We have 60 days, we're down to 50 some now, days to finally negotiate this and finally get a good long-term solution to this problem. The optimistic view is that we will be able to get that. The more pessimistic view is Iran, even though we wiped out the leaders, the people that are coming up still have the same view, and we're not going to be able to change their behavior. If that happens, I'm afraid the only choice then is to resume military action, which everybody would like to avoid.
Okay, just one final question. And the Treasury Department authorized Iranian crude oil sales through August. What are your thoughts on this? What are the impacts?
So Iran said, look, we're going to open up the strait. We're not going to fire on any ships. And I don't know what happened today. They may have fired, but they're not going to open up, and they're going to open up the strait, not fire on any ships, let oil flow. In response to that, the U.S. said, well, if you do that, we'll allow you to start selling your oil through the blockade. We'll even open up the blockade, and you'll see some benefit from doing what you say you're supposed to do and what you've agreed to do. So the Iran did something, the U.S. said, okay, we'll do something. Now then there's another step they have to do, and then the U.S. will do something. As long as that all follows, things will turn out very well. Again, I'm a little bit cautious because historically Iran just hasn't done this. Let's hope for the best. This is the first time, really, the other countries in the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, are on the U.S. side rather than being somewhat on the Iranian side. So I'm hoping the optimistic view works out, and I hope this whole thing turns out so that long term, if Iran doesn't bomb anybody and they go back to being a normal nation, and they haven't done that for years, but they'll be able to sell their oil where the U.S. is already increasing oil production. Venezuela is increasing oil production. With all of that, we should see relatively low energy prices. That will lead to relatively low inflation, and the economy works much, much better when inflation is low.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And the important thing is we can take a bit of time in negotiating this deal, but the important thing is Iran has to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, or the United States needs to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Okay, Michael, always good to speak with you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Don. Always my pleasure.
The Senate has rejected a second effort to limit President Trump's military actions involving Iran, one day after lawmakers passed a similar war powers resolution. The late-night vote was 47-50, with one senator voting present. The shift came after President Trump met with Senate Republicans and urged lawmakers to support his approach toward Tehran. Two Republican senators who backed the earlier resolution, Rand Paul and Bill Cassidy, changed their positions in the second vote. The first measure, which passed 50-48, was largely symbolic and would not have taken effect without the president's approval. President Trump said the vote could have weakened his negotiating position with Iran. After the latest vote, the president thanked Senate Republicans, saying the outcome puts Iran on notice. Israel today saying it will not withdraw its troops from southern Lebanon until the Hezbollah terror group is disarmed.
Prime Minister has made this crystal clear. He could not be clearer, and he made this point again last night. We will not withdraw our forces from southern Lebanon as long as Hezbollah remains a threat, are not disarmed, and are not demilitarized. Now, this has been true since the ceasefire of 2024, when the Lebanese armed forces were supposed to disarm Hezbollah. That did not happen. And it must happen before Israel withdraws from southern Lebanon to protect our northern border.
Senior Israeli and Lebanese officials denied today that there had been any Israeli withdrawal from southern Lebanon. This after a U.S. official said Israel had pulled some troops back in a good faith gesture toward Lebanon's government. Israel and Lebanon have been discussing a U.S.-backed proposal for Israeli forces to withdraw from parts of southern Lebanon and hand control to the Lebanese military. Israel has been enforcing a buffer zone of about 6 miles into southern Lebanon. A federal judge blocks President Trump's executive order tightening mail-in voting rules, dealing another setback to his election integrity agenda. We have more news after this break. Stay tuned.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL, a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. And Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy 1 bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy 1, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Since I was little, it was only like me and my parents.
You think you created family out of characters?
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna take that, make it into a song.
Hey, son.
Hey, Pop.
You can talk to me.
It's been really hard for me.
A legal setback for President Trump's election integrity efforts. A federal judge is blocking his executive order on mail-in ballots. The president signed the executive order in March tightening mail-in voting rules. It directs the DHS to compile and transmit to states a list of confirmed eligible voters. It also requires the USPS to only deliver ballots to voters on each state's approved mail-in ballot list. Several Democratic-led states sued, arguing that the president is trying to unlawfully interfere with the state's administration of federal elections. U.S. District Judge Indira Tawani in Boston today siding with the challengers. This marks the latest in a series of defeats for Trump's executive orders on election integrity. His orders will not take force ahead of the November midterm elections. The Supreme Court is siding with the Trump administration in an immigration case, allowing it to revive a policy that turns away asylum seekers before they enter the U.S. Under the policy called metering, officials can turn migrants away at the border. This prevents them from filing for asylum because they must be on U.S. soil to do so. The policy began during the Obama era due to overcrowding at the southern border. It ended some years ago. The Trump administration is now looking to revive the policy. The government argues that migrants who are turned back are not eligible to apply for asylum because they technically never entered the U.S. In a 6-3 decision today, the Supreme Court sided with the administration. In a separate ruling, the High Court is also siding with the Trump administration over temporary protected status, or TPS. This allows the DHS to remove deportation protections for nationals of Haiti and Syria. The decision is expected to impact thousands of Haitians and Syrians. Under TPS, certain nationalities are protected from deportation if their home country is experiencing war or natural disasters. The DHS ended TPS designations for Haiti earlier this year and for Syria late last year. The Justice Department argued that lower court judges had exceeded their authority in blocking the agency's decisions. The Supreme Court justices ruling 6-3 in the administration's favor. The Supreme Court has struck down a Hawaii law requiring permission to carry guns in stores and hotels. The High Court is issuing its latest decision on gun rights. The court's 6-3 decision means people can carry guns into private property like shopping malls and gas stations. Hawaii's law had required gun owners to get explicit permission from property owners to carry other firearms and theirs on the premises. Owners can still prohibit firearms at their establishments. Hawaii also restricts guns in places like parks, beaches, and restaurants that serve alcohol. Those laws are currently being challenged in lower courts. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin is testifying before the House Appropriations Committee. Mullin answered questions from lawmakers as Congress considers a reconciliation bill to fund the department. Here is the secretary speaking about child trafficking at the southern border.
This is probably one of the most disgusting and disturbing things that we've dealt with. I dealt with some trafficking, child trafficking when I first got into Congress in 2013. And I actually stepped away from it because at some point it just starts wearing on you, and it's time to just kind of pass the baton because you get really jaded over it. When we stepped in here, we had 450,000 kids missing. 450,000 kids that were given to sponsors that weren't vetted. No home checks. No one was going by to see if they're where they're supposed to be, not even knowing if they're in their same state, not even to see if the sponsor was who they were at all.
Mullin touched on a range of topics in addition to the Homeland Security Department's responsibilities at the southern border. During today's hearing, Mullin detailed the department's efforts to provide security in cities hosting World Cup matches.
DHS has done a phenomenal job, and keep in mind, we're shut down through the majority of this, trying to stand this up. We have 78 Super Bowls in 11 cities in 38 days. Plus, we're assisting 13 games in Monterrey, Mexico, and Mexico City. So we've been spread thin. We couldn't do it without our private partnership and public partnership in our state. This hopefully can show that DHS, with CBP, with ICE, with TSA, with the FBI, we can work together and have a good working relationship when we're looking all together for enforcing laws and making sure that we're safe.
Mullin added that DHS and law enforcement were addressing a number of issues as U.S. cities across the country host World Cup matches. The DHS secretary said the department has seen an uptick in counterfeiting as well as human trafficking. Florida is closing the Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center. Governor Ron DeSantis says DHS is capable of handling the illegal immigrants now, so the facility is no longer needed.
Alligator Alcatraz fulfilled the role that it was designed to serve. Today it now has 0 detainees. It has helped remove many, many dangerous people from the street and get them out of not only the state of Florida, but the United States of America. The detainees that were here are still in federal custody. The demobilization efforts here at this facility are underway.
The Florida governor opened the temporary detention center in the Everglades in July of last year. Officials announced a temporary closure of the facility earlier in June and sent all the detainees to other facilities. Authorities say hurricane season made it unsafe to keep them in the Everglades. DeSantis highlights that Alligator Alcatraz has made the state of Florida as well as the entire country safer. He says the facility has helped deport almost 21,000 people, including many violent criminals. The governor stresses that state and local law enforcement will continue to partner with DHS and ICE to enforce immigration law. When we come back, we have more news, so you want to stay tuned for that because there are some that you don't want to miss.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person. And I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. How did I get here? I can see now.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Bahrain today. He's meeting with foreign ministers from the Six Nation Gulf Cooperation Council. Rubio says he assured them their interests would be protected in any agreement reached with Iran.
Don't we want and will not be making any decisions or commitments that in any way undermines the prosperity, stability, or security of our Gulf partners. So every step of the way we'll create a system where we are always in communication with them and they're not reading about it in the media. The one thing that came across very clear is there is zero support among the Gulf countries for any sort of toll or fees or anything that charges for the use of international waters. The President's made it clear that's not going to happen. It's not going to be a part of this. It cannot be a part of this. Yeah, if you look at the MOU, it talks for peace in the region. It talks for no interference in the sovereignty or interest of independent countries, of sovereign countries. Well, that's what proxies are. They're interfering in the sovereignty of a country. When you're giving money, for example, to Hezbollah to act as a rival to the sovereign government of Lebanon, you're interfering in their politics. When you're sponsoring militias in Iraq, you're interfering in Iraq.
Rubio also addressing what he described as Iran's dual messaging, saying Iran's leadership will continue making extreme statements, but the focus should be on actions, not just rhetoric.
The Iranian system is led by clerics, radical clerics. That's what it's always been led by, and that's what it continues to be led by. That said, we also have to manage the geopolitics of the situation. And then there's if they've changed their mindset, or if they've changed their approach to their relations with the United States and their neighbors, then we're going to give this thing a chance to work. One of the things that I'm the proudest of is that when it comes to foreign policy and national security, we have no drama, we have no games. We have a group of people that work very well together and closely to execute on the President's directives. We've always made the point that Iran poses an even graver threat to Europe than it does to the United States. Iran already possesses missiles that can reach parts of Europe, which is part of the President's frustration. Everyone likes to go around saying Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, Iran can never have a nuclear weapons capability, but the only one who was willing to do something about it was the President. And when he did something about it, he found allies that gave us a hard time about using our bases.
Meanwhile, the U.S. economy grew faster in the first quarter than previous estimates, with consumer spending close to stalling. The Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis releasing the latest data. Here are the details.
Product increased at a revised 2.1% annual rate last quarter. Earlier reports show growth at 1.6%. GDP increased 0.5% in the fourth quarter of 2025. Consumer spending was up just 0.7%. Meanwhile, jobless claims are down last week as layoffs remain low despite economic uncertainty for employers. Labor Department data showed applications for unemployment benefits in the week ending June 20th falling by 12,000 to 215,000. Unemployment remained at 4.3%. The Commerce Department reported inflation at 4.1% in May. Core inflation, which excludes gas and food prices, was at 3.4%.
A report by the IRS's internal watchdog sheds light on a few major problems taxpayers had this year. The National Taxpayer Advocate report pats the agency on the back for a largely successful filing season, noting it, quote, performed better than expected in most respects. But the report notes one problem that is unconscionable. That's how long it takes to sort out identity theft. It happens a lot when a thief uses a taxpayer's social security number to file a phony return and steal their refund. The victim is then left with an avalanche of financial issues to clean up. Among the biggest is getting things settled with the IRS itself. Right now, 500,000 people are dealing with just that. The average time it takes to resolve is 20 months. The watchdog report also said hold times for people seeking help nearly doubled from 8 minutes last year to 14 minutes. A growing number of states are moving to restrict or ban kratom and its more potent synthetic derivatives, with critics warning some products sold in gas stations and smoke shops could fuel a new addiction crisis. NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with certified addiction professional John Poles about the risks and why some experts are calling one form of the drug the next wave of the opioid epidemic.
Kratom is a plant-derived substance sold in products ranging from powders to concentrated extracts. Critics are raising concerns over a new, more powerful compound known as 7-OH, nicknamed gas station heroin.
Which sounds kind of like an extreme statement, but the reason they call it that is because 7-OH is a naturally occurring alkaloid in the kratom leaf. However, the process to extract the 7-OH and concentrate it is incredibly potent.
Master certified addiction professional John Poles says people under the influence of 7-OH can show symptoms similar to opioid use.
When somebody is on an opioid like heroin, you'll notice that their pupils become very recessed and pinpointed. They'll kind of be nodding out. They'll be scratching themselves, and you'll see a very similar, if not identical, response to those that are on 7-OH.
He says the drug's effects are tied to the brain's opioid receptors.
It essentially works on the opioid receptors of the brain, and as a result, the high that is felt from 7-OH is very comparable to opioids, and also the withdrawal related to it is very similar to opioids.
A University of Virginia study cited by Pulse found kratom-related hospitalizations in the United States increased from 43 in 2015 to 538 in 2025. He says researchers attribute much of that increase to 7-OH products.
The risk for respiratory depression, if combined with other substances, so we've been seeing actual overdose deaths related to 7-OH concentrate specifically. So the risk of overdose is much higher, as is the risk of general intoxication and physical dependency.
Pulse says the difference between traditional kratom leaf and concentrated 7-OH products is significant.
You can compare it to taking a Vicodin with kratom leaf versus taking heroin with 7-OH. And so the risk of intoxication, driving under the influence, and just doing something to injure yourself is higher. There's, of course, the risk of an overdose.
He says stopping 7-OH can also bring severe withdrawal symptoms.
The physical dependency, where people will actually experience severe physical withdrawal symptoms, vomiting, GI issues, shaking, hot and cold sweats, difficulty sleeping, severe anxiety, those types of traditional withdrawal issues that you would see from somebody using opioids.
Kratom advocacy groups argue the plant can help some people manage chronic pain, increase energy, and reduce dependence on opioids or other substances. They say regulation, rather than an outright ban, would allow consumers access to traditional kratom products while targeting higher potency extracts. Meanwhile, Pulse says addiction to 7-OH can also come with a major financial cost.
Most of the patients that I've worked with that are using 7-OH are spending anywhere from, $30 to $100 a day on 7-OH. I was just working with a patient who approximated he's spending about $3,500 a month on 7-OH, so it ends up becoming quite an expensive habit.
Kratom remains legal in most of the country, but at least 8 states have enacted bans, and several others are weighing new restrictions. The debate increasingly centers on whether to prohibit kratom altogether or target newer high-potency products like 7-OH that critics say pose the greatest risks. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The FCC is ramping up oversight of undersea cables that handle 99% of international internet traffic. The FCC said it was planning to require licenses for line terminal operators for the first time. The operators connect undersea cables to U.S. ground facilities. The new rules are expected to benefit U.S. companies such as Facebook, parent Meta, and Google. The tech giants would be able to get approval more quickly to operate additional undersea cable systems to handle increasing internet traffic. The United States is pushing back against China over visa restrictions on American diplomats in Macau. The U.S. is skipping a high-level Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation tourism meeting in Macau, accusing Beijing of imposing what it calls discriminatory visa rules on U.S. officials. The State Department says China rejected a proposal to remove restrictions that limit U.S. personnel from providing emergency consular services to Americans in Macau. The department says the U.S. will not send senior participants to a tourism meeting in a location where its diplomats cannot fully assist American citizens in need. China, in response, accusing Washington of political manipulation. The dispute comes as the world's 2 largest economies attempt to stabilize relations despite ongoing tensions over issues including trade in Taiwan. Now we're going to take a quick break, but stay tuned for more news right after this.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
The 8th NTD International Piano Competition welcomes distinguished pianists from around the world, celebrating the depth, discipline, and expressive power of the Baroque, classical, and romantic repertoire. September 1st through the 5th, 2026, New York City. Apply at piano.ntdtv.com, honoring the timeless tradition of the piano.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, MyPillow mattresses and MyPillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard MyPillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
The World Cup is bringing thousands of international fans to the New York, New Jersey region, and many say the experience has challenged what they expected to find in the United States. With Germany and Ecuador fans in town for today's match at the MetLife Stadium, NTD's Niku Bani spoke with visiting fans about what they're seeing on the ground in New York City.
Videos have been going viral on social media with international soccer fans saying the U.S. has exceeded their expectations in co-hosting the World Cup. Today, Germany and Ecuador fans telling us New York City has been a part of that experience.
New York City is the capital of the world.
Before the start of the FIFA World Cup, the U.S. co-hosting campaign faced skepticism online, with some questioning whether a country better known for other sports could fully embrace the global game. But FIFA estimates more than 1 million visitors will pass through the New York, New Jersey region during the tournament, making it one of the central hubs of the World Cup.
I know the US from maybe like American football or baseball or something like that, and football is more from Europe. But in the few days we are here, we have very positive expectations, and yeah, it's very nice here.
And like these Norwegians taking over Times Square for a winning game celebration, fans from all over the world are enjoying New York City and its people.
Everything is a surprise. It's huge. It's great.
The city is beautiful. Man, I love it. I love it.
I'm glad to be in New York. I love the American people.
A fan from Germany even snapping pictures with an NYPD officer in Times Square, also touching upon what really matters in this tournament.
We've got a picture in America from 1,000 kilometers away, and there's a lot of politics, but when you're here, politics doesn't matter. It's about the people and the game.
And with these lasting impressions in mind, fans look forward to July 19th, where New York, New Jersey will be hosting the final of the FIFA World Cup. Niku Bani, NTD News, New York.
With the Group E Ecuador versus Germany game kicking off today in New York, New Jersey area, fans are gathering in New York City waiting to make their way to the stadium. Let's hear some of the reactions.
We're coming for the World Cup, for supporting our team. We hope we have the win and qualify to the next stage. We hope we win the game with the Germans and we can celebrate right now. But we have positive vibes for this match. It's very difficult, but I think we're okay.
Germany is with a lot of fans, but Ecuador also. So I think at least one goal. We need to win to pass to the next round.
We will see what's going on with Germany. As Ecuadorian, we're trying to figure out what's going on with our country, but I'm going to cry. I'm so nervous.
Sí se puede! Sí se puede!
I think Germany's going to win 2-1, but they don't have to win, but it's going to be a hard game, I think. What my expectation is? 3-0. Kai Havertz goal, yeah. Yeah. Their Germans are hard. They play tough, right? They always want to play really well. Like they put 7 against Brazil in 2014 away, so that was in the quarterfinal. This is a group stage game, so if they score goals, they're going to keep scoring goals, so it's going to be cool.
Germany! It's nice in New York, it's nice in America. We were in Houston, Toronto, and New Jersey. I hope we win this match 3-1 and fly Saturday to Germany.
President Trump launching the Great American State Fair on the National Mall, kicking off a nationwide celebration marking the 250th anniversary of American independence. The event featuring exhibits from all 50 states and 6 territories, along with patriotic performances, technology demonstrations, and preparations for a major 4th of July celebration. Take a look.
Tonight, as we stand on the edge of our 250th year of independence, I am thrilled to declare that America is back.
President Trump opening the Great American State Fair on the National Mall last night, kicking off a 16-day celebration.
So from today through July 10th, this event will showcase all 56 states and territories. But we're going to have special performances, patriotic music, high-tech demonstrations, unique exhibitions, a FIFA fan zone, which is great, and it really has been big stuff, and even an old-fashioned rodeo. I love rodeo. I don't know how they do it.
Organizers say the fair is inspired by a historic World's Fair and will highlight American innovation, industry, and culture. Exhibitors are set to showcase American leadership in sectors ranging from aerospace and artificial intelligence to manufacturing and space exploration. The event culminating on Independence Day.
Then on July 4th, we will have the greatest show of all on the National Mall. And I'll be very proudly speaking as we ring in our 250th year with the largest fireworks display in world history, 10 times larger than any that we've ever done in Washington or in the United States. So,
President Trump reflecting on the nation's founding.
In 1776, our founding fathers met in Philadelphia and changed the world forever and ever with a thing called the Declaration of Independence. There has never been anything like the United States of America, and together we are making it bigger and better and stronger and far more exceptional than ever before.
The president also talking about how his administration has changed America.
So over the past 17 months, we have taken power back from the far-off political class. We have reclaimed our sovereignty, regained our liberty, restored our prosperity, and we have saved our country.
Several performers originally scheduled to appear at the Great American State Fair later withdrew, citing concerns about its political associations. In response, President Trump said the celebration would focus on supporters, speakers, and patriotic music rather than celebrity entertainers. The president describing the gathering as a rally to end all rallies. The White House says the Salute to America 250 Task Force is holding events till the end of 2026. The celebration also includes the White House Founders Museum, featuring AI-generated historical figures sharing stories from the nation's founding.
but nothing compared to the moment when I signed my name to our Declaration of Independence. That day we pledged our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Respect this founding, friend. It is your inheritance, hard-won and fragile. Guard it well.
The White House says Task Force 250 aimed to inspire a renewed love for American history. President Trump saying, quote, "The story of America makes everyone free."
A people's right to be free.
America's 250th anniversary is almost here, a historic marker in our nation's remarkable history. NTD will bring you special coverage of the Freedom 250 Salute to America celebration taking place in the nation's capital this 4th of July. It's going to be packed with tributes to the country, the people, and the trailblazers who helped define national identity, bringing America's legacy to life on stage. Plus a fireworks show that Freedom 250 says will be the biggest in history. Our coverage starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. See you then. DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin hits on border security, Mexican cartels, and missing children at a House oversight hearing. Jason Blair has the highlights after this break. Stay tuned.
Summer should be full of moments like these. But when school doors close, millions of kids lose more than access to the meals they counted on. They lose energy and confidence.
Usually in the summer times, it's a challenge. They're home all day, so we need more food in the house, more snacks in the house, more than normally when they're in school.
Sometimes I just wonder, man, are we gonna make it through this week?
Families across America, and right where you live, are facing a summer hunger crisis, stretching every dollar in meal. But costs keep climbing. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to put healthy meals within reach for local families. And your first gift can double an impact.
Having access to a good meal during the summer gives me more energy.
Feeding America is the only nationwide network with over 250 local food banks, food pantries, and meal programs, delivering food where kids already gather. But we can't be there without neighbors like you.
It's like a weight off my shoulders. Without them, my kids wouldn't be fed.
Your gift today will provide more than food. You'll help fuel growth and potential, because summer should help kids move forward, not hold them back.
Your body gets tired and you need the proper stuff to help you get through that.
Please call or go online now. Give $19 a month, and your first gift can double an impact. We'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the food and hope you're delivering.
Them having good meals that are nutritious to help them to concentrate gives me hope for them to have a good future.
It feels really good knowing that my kids have the food that they need. It really puts me at ease and it helps out.
Give now to help local families put food on the table and nourish a stronger future. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your first gift can double an impact.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind.
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The way it's down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
There are real consequences to controlled media.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump says gas prices should come down much faster as oil prices plummet. What's behind his call to investigate oil companies and what Secretary of State Marco Rubio is telling Gulf allies about the current Iran agreement. A cargo ship is attacked in the Gulf of Oman. The United Nations maritime watchdog is pausing evacuation efforts in the Strait of Hormuz following the strike. The state of Florida closing Alligator Alcatraz. The governor says the detention center for illegal immigrants has fulfilled its role. Thousands of people are estimated dead after 2 major earthquakes hit Venezuela. How the U.S. is responding and what President Trump is saying. The Trump administration winning today in Supreme Court rulings involving immigration and the Second Amendment. Arlene Richards breaks down the rulings. DHS Secretary Marquin Mullen hits on border security, Mexican cartels, and missing children at a House oversight hearing. Jason Blair has the highlights.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump says gas prices should come down much faster as he demands an investigation into oil companies. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Middle East to reassure allies about the current Iran agreement. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao with the latest.
As Secretary of State Marco Rubio is abroad, telling our Gulf allies about the latest memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran, President Trump is telling Americans at home about the immediate economic impact of that deal, including now oil prices coming down. Now, the president says that he expects gas prices at the pump to drop soon as well. Watch.
For the first time in 3,000 years, we are finally going to have peace in the Middle East. We're going to have peace in the Middle East. Since the agreement, the stock market and your 401ks are skyrocketing upward, and oil prices are plummeting downward. Today, it hit a new low, and the world is a much safer place. We had to make that little journey to Iran to do what we did. Very soon, you'll be at $2.50 a gallon for gasoline.
And just yesterday, President Trump announcing on Truth Social saying that, quote, Iran has informed us that there are no tolls, no insurance costs, or any other fees associated with any ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, adding that if that's false information, negotiations would end immediately. And now the intelligence company, Kepler, has told Fox this morning that 70 vessels have crossed the Strait of Hormuz on Wednesday and 8 have made it through as far as today. And that marks a high increase over pre-war levels. As, of course, we know that a memorandum of understanding means that Iran has agreed to now keep the Strait of Hormuz open with no tolls. And now oil prices, the index have dropped below $73 per gallon, still hopping around that level with some fluctuations. But U.S. gas prices at around $3.90, still higher than pre-war levels, though down from its peak. President Trump announcing that he's now demanding the Justice Department to look into oil companies over potential price gouging activities. Here's what he said yesterday. Watch.
19 million barrels came out yesterday. That is a flood. That's like a gusher. That's an oil gusher. And they should be much lower, the gasoline prices, which really is what people see more than anything else, but for their car. But the gasoline prices should be much lower at the pump.
The CFO of Chevron, meanwhile, responding this morning, saying that there is naturally a lag between the fall in oil prices and what shows up at the pump for everyday consumers. Now, of course, when it comes to the actual negotiations between U.S. and Iran, they're still hashing out a final deal. Now, there have been some discrepancy, though, over what the two sides are saying. For example, Iran has been saying that they have not agreed to let international inspectors in to check on their damaged nuclear sites, while the U.S. says they have, and that's a major breakthrough. the IAEA yesterday confirming the U.S.'s stance. And on another note, Iran's officials today again pushing back on what the Trump administration has been saying about potentially its unfrozen funds being used to buy American agricultural goods. Now, despite that pushback, Secretary of State Marco Rubio responding while talking to reporters in the Middle East region, saying that do not believe in Iranian propaganda, but rather the U.S. is looking closely at their actual actions. Watch.
They're now interested in being a nation state that focuses on the well-being of their own people. If this is what they want for their future, the United States is prepared, alongside with all of you, to work to make that possible, despite our differences from the past. If they choose a different route, then of course this will not lead to a positive outcome. But let's be hopeful that it does, but also realistic.
Secretary Rubio is visiting Gulf nations in the region to reassure them about American protection and a consideration of their interests as the U.S. and Iran now proceed to the next phase of negotiations. The Gulf Cooperation Council today voicing support for American objectives outlined in the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, President Trump this afternoon, meanwhile, will be meeting with House Speaker Mike Johnson. A high priority for the president would now be to push the Safe America Act in both, of course, the House and the Senate to make sure that it passes to boost election integrity. Now, another topic, of course, would be Iran, as a lot of issues are now coming up domestically related to that as well. So a lot to watch for this afternoon to see if the president will open up his meeting with the House Speaker. Back to you.
All right, Iris, always appreciate the update. The United Nations Maritime Watchdog is pausing evacuation efforts in the Strait of Hormuz after a cargo ship was attacked today in the Gulf of Oman. The strike comes just hours after Iran warned against transiting through the strait without permission. It wasn't immediately clear who was responsible for the attack. The Secretary General of the UN's International Maritime Organization said the vessel had not been traveling under its evacuation framework. Agency data showed around 50 ships carrying over 1,000 sailors transiting the strait on their evacuation plan from June 23rd until today. The pause comes as the United States and Iran negotiate terms to extend the Memorandum of Understanding into a lasting peace deal. Washington and Tehran continue to differ on multiple points of any potential agreement, most notably inspections of Iran's nuclear sites. A legal setback for President Trump's election integrity efforts. A federal judge is blocking his executive order on mail-in ballots. The president signed the executive order in March tightening mail-in voting rules. It directs the DHS to compile and transmit states a list of confirmed eligible voters. It also requires the USPS to only deliver ballots to voters on each state's approved mail-in ballot list. Several Democratic-led states sued, arguing that the president is trying to unlawfully interfere with the state's administration of federal elections. U.S. District Judge Indira Tawani in Boston today siding with the challengers. This marks the latest in a series of defeats for Trump's executive orders on election integrity. His orders will not take force ahead of the November midterms. The Supreme Court issued 4 opinions favoring the Trump administration today, including 2 decisions involving immigration claims at the border and across the United States. NTD's Arlene Richards reports.
Supreme Court justices on Thursday turning out big wins for the Trump administration, starting with 2 immigration cases.
We will hear argument first this morning in Case 25-1083, Mullen v. Doe, and the consolidated case.
First up, a case brought by thousands of Haitian and Syrian immigrants living in the U.S. under a program called Temporary Protected Status. Congress established the program to temporarily protect foreign nationals from being deported while their home countries were in the middle of wars or other extraordinary crises. After former Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem announced she was ending the program, the immigrants at risk of deportation asked the court to halt her decision until after they finished challenging it in court. The administration had argued that courts couldn't review the Secretary's decision to terminate the program. Here's the Solicitor General on what the law says.
Congress said any determination with respect to designation, extension, or termination is not subject to judicial review.
A majority of justices agreed that the Secretary's decision wasn't reviewable by the courts below. Therefore, a court could not suspend the decision until after trial. Border czar Tom Homan applauded the decision at a press conference on Thursday.
You know, I've been doing this since 1984. TPS has never been temporary. Temporary means temporary. When the condition of that country gets better, they need to go home.
Homan saying he's grateful for the court's decision and that President Trump is the only president with the guts to follow the law. In a separate immigration case favoring the Trump administration, the court ruled that Mexican citizens seeking asylum at the border must first cross the border into the United States before they can become an applicant for admission, which means individuals who are still in Mexico cannot apply for asylum. White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson commenting on social media, saying President Trump is putting the American people first and restoring integrity to our asylum system that has been so badly abused for many years. The court also handing the Trump administration a win in a case involving a gun law in Hawaii. In a 6-3 decision, a majority deciding that gun owners didn't need to get permission to carry guns in stores and hotels. In striking down the law, the majority said it violated the Second Amendment. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Joining us now to discuss some of these cases further is Jonathan Houlihan, President and General Counsel of Remnant Law, which specializes on constitutional matters. Jonathan, always great to see you. Thank you for coming on today. So, as you know, the Supreme Court ruled that the government can legally turn back asylum seekers attempting to reach a port of entry before they hit U.S. soil. Can you break down the decision for us? What did the justices say?
Ultimately, both of these immigration cases are massive wins for the Trump administration. The crux of the issue is whether or not, in the asylum case, whether or not they actually entered the United States. So under the statute that was in question, did they enter the United States? And Justice Alito had a great line where he talked about if somebody reaches your front door, but they actually don't enter your house, they haven't entered the United States. So they haven't entered your house. So in the same circumstance, if there is an asylum seeker that is held in Mexico, they haven't made entry into the United States, then they don't qualify for those asylum claims, so they can be turned away. So it really turned on what the definition of entry meant in the Immigration and Nationalization Act. And it's a massive win for the Trump administration. So asylum seekers can't claim asylum in third countries.
Okay, what do you say in response to one of the dissenting justices, Sonia Sotomayor, saying that, the ruling took the specific word "in" too literally? So in the phrase arriving in the U.S., what do you make of her argument?
Well, I mean, I think it's just your common statutory plain meaning. I mean, in or enter. I mean, it's what Congress intended, to enter, to cross the border. So, I mean, that's a colorful argument. That's a dissent that she can make. But ultimately, the majority opinion ruled the day on whether you cross the border and actually enter into the United States. She didn't convince the other justices of that opinion. And I mean, I agree with the majority 100%.
Okay, so in another ruling, the Supreme Court struck down a Hawaii law requiring people to get permission to carry guns into stores and hotels. So it means people can carry guns onto privately owned property, like shopping malls, for example, gas stations, unless the owner, of course, specifically say the guns are banned at their establishments. Break down this ruling for us.
Yeah, so in this case, I didn't have a chance to read it fully, but from what I saw, essentially the government can't create restrictions or further burdens on the Second Amendment. So if a private establishment wishes not to have firearms on their property, that's one thing. But the government enforcing it or mandating it, especially for self-protection, the right to bear arms is pretty clear. And to mandate that hotels and other shop owners restrict firearms is unconstitutional. And it's a massive win for the Second Amendment. Again, a massive win for the American people. And those that just want to protect themselves with firearms, they shouldn't have these burdensome restrictions and qualifications that are really not tethered to any fact basis, but really just trying to suppress gun owners' rights.
Okay, so you're saying this is a massive win for the American people. Are we going to see any kind of knock-on effect from this ruling, maybe to apply to other states?
Well, I mean, you'll see these gun laws pop up in states all over the country where they try and chip away at the Second Amendment and restrict them, whether it's extended magazines or certain firearms. But at the end of the day, it's a win because we didn't allow the Second Amendment to get chipped away. So when I say a win for the American people, I mean the Second Amendment stands, the right to bear arms stands. So we're going to continue to see an assault on the Second Amendment. So anytime that there is a victory to defeat any kind of these arbitrary and capricious kind of gun restrictions, it's a win.
Okay, so one more thing I want to talk to you about, and this is not a Supreme Court ruling, this is a lower court ruling. So a judge in Boston ruled to block parts of President Trump's executive order on mail-in voting. Tell us about this case and break it down for us.
Yeah, so really there was two rulings. There was one yesterday in the district court in Boston and one today. And both of them really dealt with the separation of powers issues. The judges are claiming that the Trump administration doesn't have authority over elections in the executive branch. That's really a constitutional, congressional mandate and something for the states. So they blocked these executive orders for these lists. So part of it was DHS comprised list for eligible voters, and also the ability to track who is eligible to vote. So that's where the judge blocked really this compiling of lists. There was some practical discussions on whether or not it's even feasible to track these people. Plus, one of the points that was interesting from the opinion was that it was being used as an intimidation factor through DHS to collect these names and establish these lists. So ultimately, it's a separation of powers issue and who controls the voter list and the roles. And the court found that it's not the executive branch. That's a congressional mandate or a state mandate, even for federal elections. So I fully expect it to be appealed. Again, this is just the district court with a temporary injunction. So it will certainly be appealed to the DC Circuit.
Okay, help me understand a bit more about this ruling. So in Trump's executive order, it required proof of citizenship. That's not a new law. President Trump is just making sure that law is followed. So that's not allowed according to this ruling?
Hey, you don't have to convince me, Don. I agree with you. Yeah, no, I mean, I think people that should be verified and validated as eligible to vote. However, the court found that it is a state separation of powers issue, but really a state function. And the federal government, even in federal elections, it's not born out of the executive branch, but it's really born out of Congress to make those restrictions and those laws. So it really came down to the executive branch dictating elections, which under the Constitution, it's a state and a congressional mandate. And having regulation of elections through Department of Homeland Security, the court found that's a violation of the separation of powers.
Okay, just one final quick thing. You said you expect this to be appealed. What is your feeling on whether it's likely or not to reach the Supreme Court?
That's a great question. Unknown. If I had my magic 8 ball, I would say they would appeal it all the way up to the depending on what happens in the circuit court, in the Court of Appeals. But it'll at least be appealed to the Supreme Court. Whether or not they take it, I don't know if it's a ripe issue for them. I mean, it's a novel issue, certainly a separation of powers issue with the executive branch putting executive orders on elections. But at the end of the day, executive orders are not law, but they are very instructive. And you really have to fit a lot of those executive orders within current law or regulation and make sure that they get challenged. Now, the Trump administration consistently has been brilliant on these executive orders. A lot of times these executive orders have come out and really to challenge kind of what's been going on, the status quo, and then they get sued, and then they're able to bring these challenges up to the Supreme Court. So I think the Trump administration would like to see this go to the Supreme Court and rule in their favor if there's grounds to do that, because that would kind of solidify the ability of the executive branch to verify elections and certify elections and make sure that those that are voting are actually on the voter rolls and eligible to vote, and at least in federal elections.
Well, all right, Jonathan, good comments. Always great to have you on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don. Have a great day.
You as well. Florida shuts down the Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center. Governor Ron DeSantis says the facility is no longer needed as federal authorities take over handling illegal immigrants. Stay with us for more news after this quick break.
At the age of 5, I was sexually molested and became homeless at the age of 16. I had no other option. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. It was pretty tough.
No child should have to survive on the streets alone. Yet 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Instead of comfort, they are hungry and cold. Instead of safety, they face unimaginable risks. But there is a place where young people find refuge, healing, and hope. That place is Covenant House, and they urgently need your help. Please call or go online right now with your gift of just $19 a month. Just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They showed me how to do whatever it is that I need to do to break that cycle of homelessness. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Please call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. And we'll send you this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety you're providing a young person tonight.
There's no Covenant House. Where would I be today? I am so grateful for the donors.
Right now, a young person is waiting for safety, for hope, for someone like you to care. Please call or donate now at safeplacetosleep.org.
Tired of struggling with that heavy leaf blower? Introducing the Bullseye Power Blower. It delivers a massive blowing force, and yet it's so compact and lightweight. Just lock and load the rechargeable battery for long-lasting runtime. The secret is the compact turbocharged motor with jet burst technology that blasts out 21,000 RPMs of airflow. Watch this. The sheer force propels this woman across the pool. Look, use Bullseye to blow up a huge jump house. Now that's power. Even blows snow right off your vehicle in no time. Turbo clean your porch in a flash or tidy up your dirty garage floor in seconds. Get it today for just $99.99. But wait, act now and get a $20 discount. So it's only $79.99. Plus, you'll get the adjustable extension tube, yours free. And it all comes with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-209-2313 or go to bullseyeblower.com. That's 1-800-209-2313 or order online at bullseyeblower.com. Order now.
The U.S. economy grew faster in the first quarter than previous estimates, with consumer spending close to stalling. The Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis releasing the latest data. Here are the details.
Product increased at a revised 2.1% annual rate last quarter. Earlier reports show growth at 1.6%. GDP increased 0.5% in the fourth quarter of 2025. Consumer spending was up just 0.7%. Meanwhile, jobless claims are down last week as layoffs remain low despite economic uncertainty for employers. Labor Department data showed applications for unemployment benefits in the week ending June 20th falling by 12,000 to 215,000. Unemployment remained at 4.3%. The Commerce Department reported inflation at 4.1% in May. Core inflation, which excludes gas and food prices, was at 3.4%.
A report by the IRS's internal watchdog sheds light on a few major problems taxpayers had faced this year. The National Taxpayer Advocate report pats the agency on the back for a largely successful filing season, noting it, quote, performed better than expected in most respects. But the report notes one problem is unconscionable. That's how long it takes to sort out identity theft. It happens a lot. when a thief uses a taxpayer's social security number to file a phony return and steal their refund. The victim is then left with an avalanche of financial issues to clean up. Among the biggest is getting things settled with the IRS itself. Right now, 500,000 people are dealing with just that. The average time it takes to resolve is 20 months. The watchdog report also said hold times for people on the phone seeking help nearly doubled from 8 minutes last year to 14 minutes. Florida is closing the Alligator Alcatraz detention center. Governor Ron DeSantis says DHS is capable of handling the illegal immigrants now, so the facility is no longer needed.
Alligator Alcatraz fulfilled the role that it was designed to serve. Today it now has 0 detainees. It has helped remove many dangerous people from the street and get them out of not only the state of Florida, but the United States of America. The detainees that were here are still in federal custody. The demobilization efforts here at this facility are underway.
The Florida governor opened the temporary detention center in the Everglades in July of last year. Officials announced a temporary closure of the facility earlier in June and sent all the detainees to other facilities. Authorities say hurricane season made it unsafe to keep them in the Everglades. DeSantis highlights that Alligator Alcatraz has made the state of Florida as well as the entire country safer. He says the facility has helped deport almost 21,000 people, including many violent criminals. The governor stresses that state and local law enforcement will continue to partner with DHS and ICE to enforce immigration law. Moroccans celebrated heavily in New York City yesterday after a World Cup win against Haiti. NYPD got involved in Astoria, Queens, when a group of Team Morocco fans got too big. NTD's Sean Marshall has more on the story.
NYPD made multiple arrests on Wednesday after World Cup Team Morocco fans would not stop celebrating and disperse. That's after the Atlas Lions twice came back from behind to grab a 4-2 victory over a spirited Haiti side, securing their place in the World Cup round of 32. The crowd of fans got a little too big for New York City's comfort level on Steinway Street in Astoria, Queens on Wednesday. And the NYPD is no stranger to what can happen when crowds get too big. According to Omar Higazi of U Stadium, who posted these videos to XApp, it all started with 3 Moroccans on top of their vehicle playing music from a speaker that a large group of people were singing and dancing to. Higazi says one of the cops forcefully grabbed the speaker, the person holding it grabbed it back, and then the cops pulled on the speaker so hard the person fell to the ground. His people then jumped in, and that's when chaos ensued. Allegedly, one officer was kicked in the face, another was punched. Multiple arrests were made during the incident. NYPD had not yet replied back with any more details or confirmations by the time of this report airing. Every single game gets Super Bowl-level security planning around the New Jersey and New York City stadiums. But NYPD also has to keep a watch over the many visitors from different countries supporting their teams all around New York City. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Secretary of Homeland Security Markwayne Mullin gives updates on border security and missing children, as well as pressed on ICE detention deaths at House Oversight hearing. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has the takeaways. And we'll have that package in a moment, but right now, more pressing matters. Vice President J.D. Vance is sitting down for a candid conversation at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library, marking the release of his new memoir, Communion: Finding My Way Back to Faith. The Vice President reflects on his spiritual journey and how his faith continues to shape his public service. Take a look.
19 loaded handguns when she died. And I remember when my aunt and I and my sister were going through her things after she had passed away, we would find loaded revolvers all around the house, you know, in like the knife drawer and in her dresser and her wardrobe. And we sort of were trying to think about why she had guns stashed everywhere. And we realized it was because Mamaw was a particularly, well, let's just say she believed in the Second Amendment and she believed in the right of self-defense. And so she didn't get around that well towards the end of her life. And so she made sure that no matter where she was, if somebody walked in her door, she would have a loaded revolver within arm's reach. And that was the kind of woman that she was. And she cussed a lot. I mean, there's so many stories I could tell about the ways in which her language was passed on to me. And my wife, who grew up in a very middle-class Southern California family, there are times where she'll be like, you can't say those things around our 9-year-old, our 6-year-old, our 4-year-old, because they repeat them. Like, for example, I'll tell you a story that one of the earliest flights that I had after I got elected to the Senate, I was flying back from Cincinnati to DC, and because my kids were so young at the time, like sometimes I would just take a kid with me and hang out with me in DC, and that was one of the ways I made sure that I stayed connected to my kids. We eventually moved the whole family to Washington, but for those first 6 months, I would only see my kids on weekends, and so I'd bring them to DC. And I remember I was on a plane on a Delta flight from CVG to Washington Reagan Airport, and my son drops one of those Delta Biscoff cookies between his seat, and he looks at me and he goes, "Well, shit." And I like had this moment of sort of panic because I realized everybody around, I mean, think about it, a flight from Cincinnati to DC, literally every person knows that I'm a United States Senator, and also that I've apparently a terrible father because I've raised my kids, my 3-year-old, to use that language. But anyway, that's the weave. We'll get back to the question. But here's, the thing is, despite the fact that she was very non-conventional in a lot of ways, my grandmother was a person of very deep religious faith. And so when she died, I'll never forget this, and I still get a little bit emotional when I think about it. She had this practice where she had a little notebook, and she would say prayers and write her prayers down when she said them for each member of her family. And so you could actually see this almost as a diary of her conversations with God through the months or even through the years where, she'd pray for my safety, or she'd pray for my strength, or she'd pray, that something would go right in my sister's life. And you just realize that this was a woman who was constantly talking to God, despite the fact that her religion is what you might call unchurched. She loved the Lord. She believed in Jesus Christ. She also didn't go to church that often. And looking back, I think one of the things that I realized about my own faith is that I was attached to Christianity via my grandmother. She was the anchor. She was the person who taught me about God. She was the person who constantly was encouraging me to think about God. She was the person who was encouraging me to read the Bible and to pray. And because I didn't have a great church community myself, I would bounce around to various churches. Sometimes we'd go once a month, sometimes less than that. When my grandmother died, just a couple of months before I left for Iraq in 2005, I sort of lost my faith. And I think there was a sort of lesson in there for me, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I came back to my faith. And part of the thing I was trying to think through with this book is, why is it that kids who are raised in the faith fall away from it? I think most of us in this audience are probably people of faith. We raise our children to be Christians. I take my kids to church every Sunday, even when they're misbehaving and they don't want to go. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm writing this book, what makes it take and what makes it not take? Why do some kids who are raised in the faith have this very, very strong connection to Christ, whereas some kids, it just doesn't ever really take root? And that's one of the things I was trying to think of. And one of the answers I came up with myself is, while it's very important to have a parent or a grandparent or somebody who raises you in your faith, I think that if that's it, if your only connection to faith is a loved one rather than something deeper and broader, then your faith is always going to be at risk, like mine was when that person passes away. And so that is definitely like one of the things that I write about, and one of the things that motivated me to write the book in the first place.
Well, and that's kind of where this debate, which you write about, between reason and science, right, and then versus the mystery of faith. And you say that this is playing out on Reddit threads, and we've all heard those theological debates, and you're having these debates with yourself.
Sure.
So you then begin classifying yourself as an atheist. And you write, quote, "I was severing myself from my roots." How and why did that happen?
Yeah, so, I grew up in a working class family in southwestern Ohio, and to lose my faith when I was, 21 years old, 22 years old, so I'm in the Marine Corps, I go to Iraq. By the time that I leave the Marines, this would have been 2007, I was now calling myself an atheist. And to do that was it was this very sad thing in some ways, because I was disconnecting myself from the family that made me who I was, right? To sort of say that I wasn't a Christian anymore was to say that I wasn't connected to my grandmother anymore, because that was one of the most important things to her. I would say it was the most important thing to her. And so there was a certain amount of tragedy there. But there also was a certain amount of arrogance. And I think that a lot of us have went through this phase, and I certainly did, where you start to think that you know everything. And one of the ways that reflected itself in me is that I just assumed that anybody who had faith, anybody who was a person of deep religious roots, was superstitious. And I started to think of myself as I was motivated by reason, and I was motivated by smarts, and I was motivated by, honest and open debate. And the people who believed that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, like my grandmother, it was kind of tragic that I didn't share that belief with her, but one of the ways that I expressed it was, she's superstitious. She was a simpleton. And that arrogance that came from rejecting my faith, frankly, made me a much worse person. And it made me much more open to ideas that were far crazier and far more radical than anything that I had rejected when I was a Christian. And that was one of the things that I kind of realized is, G.K. Chesterton once said that when people stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing, they believe in anything. And there was something really profound about that, because what I saw around me was a bunch of people who saw themselves as hyper-rational, as motivated by science, as motivated by reason, but in reality, having discarded faith, they just adopted a whole new set of ideas that I think was, frankly, a lot crazier than anything that I had derided as superstition or as simple when I was a kid. And that was an interesting realization for me, that you become an atheist in part because you assume that you're smarter than everybody else. And then you realize that the people who assume that they're smarter than everybody else believe some very stupid things.
Well, that's certainly true. But during this time, you start to read C.S. Lewis.
I do.
And you write that you wish that God was more like Aslan from the Chronicles of Narnia. What did you mean by that? And what are you learning? What are you taking away from C.S. Lewis?
Well, one of the things that, I think all of us come to God in our own ways. And some of us, it's through a loved one. Some of us, it's through a relative. Some of us, it's because we belong to a church that's very meaningful to us. I think one of the ways that I always engaged with my faith, and was certainly true then, and is definitely true now, is through ideas. Is the idea that there was some truth built into the Christian faith that maybe I discarded, but was very profound and very moving and can motivate people to do amazing and inspiring and courageous things. But I was definitely interested in the intellectual elements of Christianity. And what C.S. Lewis did for me, and what I talk about in the book about being really, really attracted to this Aslan figure in a child's book, and encountering God in a children's book in a way that I had never encountered God when I was being raised by my grandmother in southwestern Ohio. And what I meant by that is that there were all of these things, that Aslan would say that I later found out were basically just C.S. Lewis copying from the Bible and putting them in his books. I mean, it was fundamentally, if you don't know the backstory of the C.S. Lewis's novels, what he was trying to do was imagine what would Jesus Christ look like in the context of a children's novel. I mean, that's who Aslan is. It's not a metaphor or an allegory of Christ. He's actually trying to say this is what Christ would look like, would sound like, were he in this, very rich children's novel that he wrote. And what I found so compelling about it is that, there was something deeply smart about C.S. Lewis's Christianity. And I think, by the way, that led me astray in some ways. And what I mean is there was a point in my life where my faith was very much of the head, but not of the heart. And so I think you can overthink these things. You can over-intellectualize these things. But the way that God sort of started to pull me back in is I realized that there were a lot of really interesting ideas at the core of Christian philosophy and at the core of Christian theology that I had cast aside, but were far richer than what I'd realized. And that kind of, again, that was the hook. that started to draw me back in. And there were other hooks, of course, but that was a very, very important hook for me, realizing as a kid who thought of himself as very smart and very rational, realizing that there was a brilliance to the Christian faith. There was an insight into the Christian faith that I had never really taken seriously, but was very much there.
And as you are getting reeled back in, you write that it was a Catholic saint that provided the first proverbial crack in my atheist armor. Who was that? What were the circumstances?
Well, so when I got baptized in, I guess, 2019, I took the name of St. Augustine because there were a couple of things that I had read when I, again, was in this sort of arrogant atheist phase. And I look back on it now and I think to myself, I'm kind of embarrassed by it. I cringe when I think of the things that I said back then. This is one of the great things about being a millennial as opposed to a Zoomer. Most of the stupid stuff that I've said is not on the internet, right? I feel bad for the teenagers out there that a lot of the stupid stuff you say, guys, unfortunately, it's going to live forever. But for me, most of it was just, the cringy stuff that I said was interacting with my friends and talking to professors and classmates and so forth. But, St. Augustine, first of all, there was this book that I read in a philosophy course that I took at Ohio State, right? So I'm an undergrad, and it's called The City of God. And again, going back to this idea that the Christian canon, the set of ideas that laid the foundation for the Christian religion, that it was way more interesting and way smarter than anything else that I had ever been exposed to. That was very, very important for me. But there were also things that St. Augustine said where he would talk about the importance of humility, and that certain ideas that maybe I had adopted when I was a Christian were actually my pathway to discarding my Christian faith. And, for example, I remember when I was a teenager, and I would go on online messaging chats and argue with scientists about this or that scientific question and how this was incompatible with the Christian faith or that was incompatible with the Christian faith. And there's actually, and I don't have the quote right in front of me, but there's this quote from St. Augustine, literally 1,700 years old, 1,600 years old, where he talks about assuming that you're smarter than other people and taking what you believe and assigning it as Christian doctrine is actually discrediting Christian doctrine. Because, who are you to go out there as a teenager and argue with people and assume that you know more about the Christian faith than everybody else, and you're going to try to whack people over the head with the truth of the Christian faith? And having a little bit of humility and accepting that something that you assume is unchristian, maybe a Christian thinker like St. Augustine said 1,700 years ago was not totally consistent. There was this way where it sort of forced me to say, okay, I've discarded a Christian faith that I had, but maybe it was a very simple Christian faith, and maybe it was a very arrogant Christian faith, and maybe the thing that I had discarded was actually arrogance. It wasn't the truth of Christianity, but it was my own arrogance and my own sense that I knew things more than other people.
Sort of keying off of that, you title a chapter, More Money, More Problems. Why does more money sometimes cause more problems? Well,
Again, I'm a millennial, and so I believe that's the wisdom of the great Christian theologian P. Diddy, who, as we found out over the last couple of years, is very much not a Christian or a theologian. But see, I'm going to get in trouble for all kinds of things. That'll be one of them. That will be in an attack ad at some point in the future. But okay, so again, to set the stage here, I was a Christian and then I wasn't. And I was arrogant and I assumed that I knew everything, and I assumed that the faith of my grandmother was based on superstition. I was very arrogant about what I thought I knew. So I think all of us in our lives were searching for something. We're orienting our lives around something. And for me, the thing that I started to orient my life around was status, was prestige, was money, was getting ahead. And by the way, there's a legitimate basis for that impulse. It's not bad if you grow up in a working class family to want to be able to provide your kids things that you didn't have. or to want to be able to provide your children stability that you didn't enjoy. Those things are all totally reasonable. But I turned it almost into an obsession. I turned it into an idol. I started to care so much about where I went to school and what my credentials were that I started to focus less on the things that actually mattered. And I realized that, that probably came from somewhere deep in me. I tend to think that both our virtues and our vices are programmed a little bit from the very beginning. But I recognized that I'd become a striver. I'd become a person who cared about success, not because I was trying to achieve something important, but because I wanted to be better than other people. And that was a fundamental flaw in my character. And then something kind of crazy happened. I won the game. I won the competition of life. I got into Yale Law School. Nobody in my family had ever known anybody who had gotten into an institution like that. And so I'm at this school, and I noticed a couple of things. The first thing that I notice is that in this institution, where I assume that everybody is super smart and super rational, these are the best and the brightest. Something kind of crazy happened. I noticed that a lot of them had some pretty crazy ideas of their own. And that if I had dismissed the Christians in my life as being simpletons, there were things that my classmates at Yale Law School believed that were pretty crazy. Like, for example, men should play in women's sports. But there was a certain intellectual arrogance there, okay? Even though most of my classmates were good people and I liked a lot of them and we're still very good friends, there was a sense that I realized that these people had beliefs that were as religious and as orthodox as anything I had ever experienced in the Christian family that raised me, but these people didn't root it in faith, they rooted it in the idea that they were smarter than everybody else, and I realized that was dangerous. But then there was something much more personal and frankly much more important that happened, which is that I fell in love. And so the woman who is now the second lady of the United States and 36 weeks pregnant with baby number 4, thank you.
Congratulations.
So I fall in love with this girl, and I realize she doesn't care really about how much money I make or what my status is. She doesn't care about whether I become vice president of the United States. She just wants the things that are good out of life. She wants to have a nice family. She wants to have a bunch of babies. And she wants to build a life with somebody that she loves that is rooted in the things that matter. And it kind of hit me, all of the things that I've been orienting towards, all the things I've been focused on, the striving and the obsession with credentials, she doesn't care about that. She cares about whether I'm a good person. And I hadn't built my life to be a good person. I'd built my life to get ahead. And the more that I started to think, how do you build your life to be a good person, to be the kind of man this woman wants me to be, it sort of hit me that Christianity that I had discarded as a superstition was actually much wiser and much truer than what I had discarded.
So you devote much of the second half of communion to exactly that, your family.
That's right.
How you raise your children, their continued important roles in your life and along your faith journey. You write that you want to teach your sons to be virtuous men. What is it like to be both vice president and a young father raising virtuous children simultaneously?
Well, they're not virtuous yet, I'll tell you. They're very sweet kids. They're very good kids. We're working on the virtue part. I mean, so one thing, one thing I love about American Christianity is that it's very dynamic. You have Catholics and evangelicals arguing about this or that doctrinal question. You have the mainline churches and you have the Orthodox Church. You just have this very interesting, very dynamic hodgepodge. But I think it's actually, I love it because I think it leads to a lot of interesting conversations. I had so many interesting conversations with people of different denominations. And one of the differences between the evangelical church that I grew up in and the Catholic church that we take our kids to now, and I'm a baptized Catholic, is most of the time Catholic churches encourage you to take your family into the Mass with you. Like, that's a very big difference. When I was a kid, you would drop your kids off, the little kids off at the youth group, and then you'd go into the main congregation with everybody else. Now, there are like downsides to this, right? Because we've got a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And so sometimes, my 6-year-old is blabbering on about Dog Man, which is these comic books that little kids are really into, while the priest is saying the most important part. And the thing that I realized is that the ritual of going to church is a very, very good thing for our family. And that's one of the things. We talk about inculcating virtue. Okay, one of the most important virtues for kids to learn is they have to learn when it's appropriate to speak or not to speak, or when it's appropriate to sort of interrupt or not to interrupt. And they're just all of these little ways. Now, that's something small and something all kids eventually, at least most kids eventually figure out. But there's something also, where I'll look at my 9-year-old, and sometimes he's daydreaming when the homily is being said, but then sometimes he's actually thinking, oh, that's really interesting. Or, oh, because Christ sacrificed himself for us, maybe I should be a little bit more patient with my 6-year-old little brother who wants to steal one of my toys. And you realize there are these ways in which just a connection to the gospel is forming their minds in ways big and small. And that is the thing that I really, really love about the church. And it's a thing that I really, again, going back to my own formation, as much as I love my grandmother, and as much as she was a person of very devout faith, and as much as I believe that we will be reunited in heaven when all this is over, we didn't have that kind of church community. I didn't have that kind of day-to-day exposure to what the gospel was saying and what it required of me. And that is a thing that I just think is very good for kids. I happen to believe it's true, but I also think, completely aside from the truth of it, it's very good for my kids to be forced to reflect on this very, very ancient set of traditions and ancient set of faiths. And I already seeing it having a very profound effect on them.
One of the themes that you address in Communion is the value of debate.
Yes.
And dissent and challenging long-held perspectives. Of course, your own debate in the 2024 presidential campaign helped to introduce you to most Americans.
That was fun.
It was fun to watch, too. And in Communion...
Can I tell you a story about that?
Please.
Okay. So you never really know how these things are going. There's adrenaline. I mean, Robert knows this. And, you're fundamentally... You might think things are going well and they're going terribly, or you might think things are going terribly and they're actually going well. So I finished this debate, and I think things have gone pretty well, but of course I don't know. And I'm sitting there on stage next to Tim Walz, and there's this point where they're kind of cutting to credits, and then my wife comes on stage, and then Tim Walz's wife comes on stage. So I look over at Usha, and she's like glowing. She's got the biggest smile on her face, and I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. And then I look over at Glenn Walz, and she looks like she's just showed up to her dog's funeral. And that was the moment where I realized, if my wife is really happy and Glenn Walz is not so happy, things must have went pretty well.
I think you've just answered my question, which inadvertently... talk to us about the importance of writing, because you mentioned that the first manuscript of this book was completed when Mrs. Vance was expecting your second child in 2019, and that was before you were elected vice president. So how do you write? Talk us through your creative process.
Yeah, so, one of the things that I think is very frustrating to my speechwriter, who's an amazing guy and an amazing writer in his own right, is that I can't say something unless it's in my own words. It has to be in my own words. And I think one of the ways, even when I was a young kid, one of the ways in which I think through things, or I puzzle through issues, or I try to think about what do you actually think about something, is you almost have a debate with yourself, right? You try to take...
And you're watching now the vice president talking about his journey with faith, saying that he credited his faith to his grandma introducing God and Christianity to him, but he brushed it off as superstition. At one point, he lost his faith, but he regained it because he noticed that people who were atheists, they believed in something that is actually less intelligent, in his words, compared to Jesus Christ, to God. So he reattained that faith, and talking about his new book as well. Okay, we're going to move on now. Secretary of Homeland Security Markwayne Mullin gives updates on border security and missing children, as well as pressed on ICE detention deaths at House Oversight hearing. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has the takeaways.
There's not 1 inch of Mexico's northern border that isn't covered by a plaza. Plaza is cartels, 9 cartels that control it.
Secretary of Homeland Security Mark Wayne Mullen appearing before a House subcommittee on Thursday for a standard annual oversight hearing. Border security and the cartels were a major focus.
And they're always looking for vulnerabilities to push human trafficking and drug trafficking across our border, and they're getting very good at it. They're even using UAS now.
Mullen says that the border wall has been useful.
We just discovered our first tunnel in years because our wall is being effective.
Mullen says that working to locate 450,000 missing children he described as being released to unvetted sponsors has been, quote, probably one of the most disgusting and disturbing things that we've dealt with.
No home checks. No one was going by to see if they're where they're supposed to be. There was a ring of several adults that were keeping kids in an underground bunker in a dungeon. The stuff that these adults put kids as young as 2 to as old as 12 through, you can't make a horror story that bad.
Committee ranking member Rep. Rosa DeLauro asked Mullen about children being separated from arrested illegal immigrants.
3,900 children were separated from their families.
450,000 kids were lost during the Biden
Mr. Secretary,
administration. You should be as upset about the 450,000 kids that were lost. You didn't say a word about it. For 4 years, you never said a word.
Mr. Secretary.
The hearing exposed deep partisan divide over border security and the treatment of immigrant children. When Mullen was pressed over ICE detention deaths, he defended federal facilities, noting that they have fewer detainee deaths than some federal prisons. Reporting on Capitol Hill, Jason Blair, NTD News.
The United Nations Maritime Watchdog is pausing evacuation efforts in the Strait of Hormuz after a cargo ship was attacked today in the Gulf of Oman. A U.S. official saying Iran targeted the vessel with a drone. The strike comes just hours after Iran warned against transiting through the strait without permission. The Secretary General of the UN's International Maritime Organization said the vessel had not been traveling under its evacuation framework. Agency data showed around 50 ships carrying over 1,000 sailors transiting the strait under the evacuation plan from June 23rd until today. The pause comes as the United States and Iran negotiate terms to extend the Memorandum of Understanding into a lasting peace deal. Washington and Tehran continue to differ on multiple points of agreement, most notably inspections of Iran's nuclear sites. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. We're taking a quick break. We'll be back with more news. And remember to watch NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.